Welcome, everyone, to Draft on Tap. My name is Aldo Gandia. Beside me is Danny Shimon, and below me is Neil Stopchinski. For those of you listening on the audio podcast, you really should join us live when we do these shows. Although this is supposedly the season finale, but maybe I'll get the guys to do one more show. We'll see. We'll let you know. Guys, how are you? First of all, I want to start with Neil. You were gone taking care of some family matters and so forth. I hope everything went well, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Although it feels so good to be back. Spent last weekend in Valpo with Aubrey's family. Her grandma, she passed away the night that Aubrey defended her thesis, which presented a really, really bizarre range of emotions for, that situation that night and really the corresponding, next few days. We found out that all the services were going to be on Saturday and Sunday. Did a celebration of life on Saturday. The funeral arrangements were for Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, rather. And everything was phenomenal. There's that whole cliche, that goofy banter that you go to funerals and people start talking about how they wish the circumstances were different, but good to see you. The whole thing totally made sense this year, especially because I think that was the first time that me and her had seen anyone from her family in about a year and a half. So it was really good to see everybody again. We, especially the celebration of life on Saturday, we hung out, we ate some good food, drank some good drinks, told a bunch of good stories. It was really good. Good 48 hours worth of family time and all those types of things. So can't complain about any of it. Silver linings, right? Silver linings.
I hear you. Well, please express to Aubrey our condolences, and it's great to have you back, brother.
Yeah,
Danny, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. I'm a little excited to have my partner in crime back here, and but I'm a little sad, man. That this is the last show. It's been a long grind, and got into the groove here, and spending Thursday nights with you guys and with our listeners. It's like it's become a second home here. So it's gonna be sad to not be here, but you said we might have another show, so we'll see. Stay tuned, guys. We'll see what happens.
Well, look, Aaron Current is already asking for another one. He says, "What's up, fellas? Giving out way too early 2022 projections."
I'm working on my list. I got it right
here. That's right.
Is there anything more worthless than way too early 2022 draft projections?
Yeah, that's right.
Got my list, guys. I got. What do you guys want? A quarterback? No, we don't want a quarterback. We want offensive lineman, edge guy.
But one of the reasons I'm asking the guys to consider doing another show is because Eric Galko, the executive director of the East-West Shrine game, his first year, was supposed to join us tonight, but because of some scheduling issues, we're going to try to have him on a week from today. And so if we can get the crew together, we'll do that with Eric. If not, we'll figure out another show to put Eric on. But we're looking forward to talking to him and getting some information about the East-West Shrine game, what he plans to do with that game as the executive director. And, of course, I'm sure he's got an eye on some prospects for that game already. So already started, Danny. Look at Chubbs. Where is Leno? And that's exactly where we're going to start this conversation, because tonight's guest, Chris Emma from 670 The Score, is going to join us in about 20 minutes. So I thought we would devote the first 15 minutes of the show to talk about this issue with Charles Leno Jr. being released by the Chicago Bears, and now ostensibly leaving the left tackle job to Tevin Jenkins, the rookie. Danny, how shocked are you?
That's when Chubbs is going to be asking, where's Leno? Because when Jenkins is getting beat like a turnstile left tackle, he's going to be asking for Leno. But anyway, all joking aside, Leno was a guy for me. We knew this could happen, right? Because they're up against the salary cap. They only had a $410,000 under the cap, and they needed room to at least sign their draft class. So we knew something was going to come up, whether it was a restructure or a cut. I was a bit surprised that they cut Leno so quickly. But you know what? They created that $9 million cap space there. And I'm telling you, if they plan on going with Tevin Jenkins at left tackle as a rookie next year, keep Justin Fields on a bench then. Just let Dalton and Foles take the pounding, because that's gonna be rough to watch. But Leno's already got. I think he's already met with. I think he met with Washington. I think he's already met with the Colts possibly. So he's going to get picked up real quick here.
Yeah.
I was going through the free agent left tackle or offense tackle list, and believe it or not, Leno's probably one of the better guys available right now.
He's the best guy available.
The other guy is Eric Fisher, but Fisher's coming off of a torn Achilles, which he tore in the AFC Championship game. So that's probably a 6 to 8 month injury. So, having him be ready to start week 1 possibly would probably be a stretch. Well, we'll see how everyone recovers differently. But I'm telling you guys, if you guys expect to go with Tevin Jenkins at left tackle as a rookie, that's gonna be rough.
I agree. Neil, your thoughts on the cut?
I thought for sure that we were going to ride one more year out with Charles. I mean, listen, guys, we how many times have we talked about how there's probably 15 other teams that would love to have Charles Leno on their roster right now, right?
Yep.
I mean, I get that he's making more money than what you consider he's worth, but the fact of the matter is he gave us 7 great years. He's at the very least functional at left tackle. Jimmy is Jimmy Christ now Spanish? He's Jimmy Cristo. Is that what's happening right there?
That's right, Jimmy Cristo.
Next week he's going to be Italian, right? He's going to, Either way, I figured that at the very least we'd go ahead and take another year with Charles. We'd have Tevin starting at right tackle because, I mean, let's be honest, it's what he is, right? Now we all could be like 100%, dead in the sights wrong, and I'll happily not only eat crow about Tevin not being able to play, but not being able to play, left tackle. It's hard watching his film and thinking about him protecting the blind side. It really is.
Go ahead. No, I'm saying like the thing about Leno is we're not saying, oh, Leno's great. You guys should have kept him as a mistake. If you had a serviceable or a replacement on a roster, fine. That's
which we don't have.
Which we don't have. That's a problem. It's if you needed the cap money, it's fine. I get it. But you know what? At least have someone there. And if you plan on moving Jenkins there, the kid made 7 starts in his collegiate career at left tackle, and those weren't 7 consecutive starts. Those are like 3. I think it was 3 in 2018,
get you out of a jam start.
2019, and one in this past season. So this guy has 26 starts at right tackle. So that tells you where the coaching staff at Oklahoma State preferred him to have at. So again, if the Bears can prove us wrong and say this guy's a left tackle, that's more power to them. But no one I've talked to who works in the NFL thinks this kid can play left tackle. They all had him as a right tackle, and they all had him possibly as a guard, as possibly his best position. So, and that watching his tape, breaking him down, that's where I project him to as a right tackle.
I hope the factor's right. I hope Juan Castillo can work some voodoo magic and get this kid, to play left tackle. Maybe we get him to the Wonderful Wizard of Oz and get him some better agility. I don't know, but right now it's kind of a scary thought, guys. I'm not 100% sold that we're gonna get out without injuring a quarterback in the first 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. Getting a kid that's never played left tackle before as his like craft and trade, right? Throwing him on the left side in the NFL, protecting a kid that can't move, assuming Andy Dalton's going to be the starter week 1. Kind of scares you a little bit.
It does. I mean, I'm nervous about the whole thing, and I'm not the only one besides the 2 of you guys, Olin Kreutz and his podcast partner, whose name just escaped me, Jason McKee. They both played for the Chicago Bears together. They have a great podcast called the No Name Podcast. They started off their show talking about the Charles Leno cut, and here are their concerns.
Been a lightning rod for a lot of Bears fans. I thought he was solid, played to about the level that they paid him at, middle of the pack. Left tackle, guy who was drafted in the 7th round, hasn't missed a game in 5 years. If you go back through the Bears drafts, J-Mac, Leno probably was the best Bears draft pick at tackle since Jimbo Covert in 1983. So, turn that 7th round pick into a pretty good career. The thing that bugs me about that release, J-Mac, is the fact that you could have saved the same amount of money cutting Jimmy Graham.
93 consecutive starts in the 7th round pick. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. And he's another guy too, like you mentioned, you're trying to save money. You can get rid of Jimmy Graham. You already have Cole Kmet there. But at the same time, this is a guy who's played a lot of ball, who could help some of the young guys that you just brought in. help them turn into pros. Obviously, Tevin Jenkins got a lot of promise, but he still has to learn what it means to be a pro in the NFL. Completely different game. Larry Borum, same thing. You know, you have a guy on that line who's played a lot of football, you know, who could help mentor these guys, help bring them along faster, but also help continue to develop the young guys who got a lot of playing time last year, like our guys, Alex Bars and Sam Mustafa, continue to help building that relationship with those guys to help them guys be a better pro from a guy who's, granted, not costing you a whole lot, but you could have made some other moves to keep that guy, and he could have been that mentor along the offensive line.
That their offense is so bad at scoring points that they got to keep a guy like Jimmy Graham, I guess, in their mind. That's the way they prioritize.
Right.
And that's the way it looked for years, right? They prioritize these skill guys over linemen in that building when they're collaborating. The word they use when they're all collaborating,
right.
They come up with, how do we save money? Well, we cut our left tackle, who, like you just said, starting left tackle, who you just said has 93 starts around. It just seems to me, okay, now we're going to talk about development and developing these guys. I think most guys you ask would tell you that Tevin Jenkins fits better at right tackle.
Yeah.
So now your immediate decision is to cut the left tackle and probably move Tevin Jenkins to left tackle.
Yeah.
And you know, his arm length is a question for some. His pass blocking is a question for some. It doesn't seem to me like the Bears are going to prioritize running the ball, although they might with the way they're going. Yeah. That might be what they're thinking. But just these are the questions. These are the things you have questions about, even though they had a good draft. Your plan and developing these players, J-Mac, that is crucial.
There it is. I mean,
longevity.
The guy said it all right there. This is a mistake unless they've got a plan B here to bring in a veteran left tackle. And maybe Charles Leno returns on a reduced contract. I don't know. But right now, I am worried. If they're thinking that Tevin Jenkins is going to be a plug-and-play left tackle, I'm worried about it. I just am.
Right.
Well, longevity, durability, and leadership is what you lose.
Mm-hmm. And that's Owen Kreutz. That's not me talking about here. That's Owen Kreutz, an all-pro center who knows offensive line play inside and out. And, you know, and he's talked to people as well that scouted Tevin Jenkins. It's just like Neil and I have, and everyone believes he's a right tackle right now. You know, could he develop into a left tackle? Maybe, but I mean, to put him in there as a rookie right away, I think that's asking a lot for the kid. But, you know, we'll see what happens. I still hope that there's a plan B, and they're going to bring in a veteran at least to kind of present some sort of, you know, backup plan in case, you know, if their option is Jenkins. Yeah, that's another thing with the Jenkins pick. Again, and I'm not busting on the kid. I think the kid's going to be a solid right tackle for them in the future. It's you move up. You get up with the 83rd pick in the third round to get up in 39 to take a kid like Jenkins, right? And everyone says, oh, they had a first round grade. They had a first round grade. No one that I talked to had a first round grade on Tevin Jenkins, right? The Raiders took Alex Leatherwood at 17 over Tevin Jenkins, and they needed a right tackle. So that tells me about now. The Bears could have had a first round pick on Tevin Jenkins. That's their board. That's fine. But you pass up a guy like Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame. The kid played left tackle and right tackle. He played left tackle for Notre Dame against big time competition these past 3 seasons. All right, he's a guy for me. That's a plug and play tackle. I had him as a right tackle as well. Now Eichenberg came in with shorter arms than expected. I don't know if that's why I dropped him on the Bears board. But you know what? That guy is such a technician that I would have taken him and put him at left tackle, and I would have felt a little better with him at left tackle than I would Tevin Jenkins at left tackle, because at least he's played it on a consistent basis for Notre Dame. Now, again, Eichenberg possibly could be a right tackle for his best spot in the future, but at least he's a guy that I feel more comfortable with playing him at left tackle. If you're gonna go ahead and make this move here with cutting Charles Leno, so that's the thing, is like you pass up on a guy like that for a kid like Tevin Jenkins, who to me can't play left tackle.
And think about the other guys that were still on the board as well, like Sam Cosmi and Dylan Radins, and one of my personal favorites, Jackson Carman, who I think is sort of like a Rashawn Slater, Swiss Army knife type of dude that, you know, could function on the outside, athletic enough to, could also be moved inside. You know, shows a lot of things that you want out of the position. You know, and again, guys, like, I will happily eat crow if Tevin Jenkins ends up being a beast on this offensive line for us, especially with all the reports that I got about him not loving football. I will happily say I was wrong as hell if this kid ends up, you know, kicking ass, because everything he's done so far has been awesome, right? And everything he's said in the media, everything he's put on Twitter, he talks about how he just wants to kick everyone's ass from the starting gun. You love that. I talk all the time in the previous shows, and especially on the offensive line shows. I talk about how you need guys that are big, nasty, physical, mean, want to drag you through the dirt like type of dudes, and that's the way he's projecting his mentality right now, right? I think it was interesting if you listen to Mike Gundy talk about the kid. Going back to the whole not loving football thing, Mike Gundy was talking about how really it was this year where he started to really figure out, who he was as a football player. Right, he started to develop, some sort of affinity for the game of football, right? So, historically, he hasn't been that way. Let's hope that whatever has happened over the course of the past calendar year has changed him from a mental, emotional, functional standpoint, and that he ends up just being this ass kicking type of dude that brings back, hardcore black and blue physicality to the Chicago Bears offensive line. I would want nothing more than to see that back in our offensive line, that Owen Krutz style of playing football. Right, but even Owen Krutz is sitting here thinking, "God, oh man, I'm not sure he's a left tackle, guys. I'm not sure he's a left tackle." And both of us obviously agree.
Chubbs is even claiming that Larry Borum can play left tackle. I don't know what he's seen.
Not a chance in hell.
Think that. I have no idea what Chubbs has seen to think that.
Chubbs got to watch some tape, not highlight film.
It's preposterous to think that he could play left tackle in this league. It's just not going to happen. And if Jenkins can play left tackle, then great, but he hasn't shown anything conclusive on tape to make me believe it. I'm on with Danny and Neil on this one, and we don't always agree, but on this one, we agree. And later in the show, these guys are going to disagree about Tonga. We'll get to that. But any final thoughts on this Charles Leno thing as we wait here for Chris Emma to show up in about 8 minutes or so?
I just hope it doesn't bite them in the ass. I mean, I hope they have a backup plan and they bring in a veteran or someone that can come in and at least, compete for the left tackle spot. Because, like I said, if you're going to go in with this one kid and Elijah Wilkerson as his backup or potential, swing tackle, that's rough, man. Especially if you got a young quarterback, you're going to be breaking in here. And now I know, Fields is more mobile. He can probably get away from pass rush, but come on, I mean, you're having a rookie possibly start, right? And with a turnstile, a left tackle, possibly. Neil said it. We hope this kid develops. If he's a left tackle, great. We'll be wrong, but everything that we see, everything other NFL people see, he's a right tackle. So we'll see what happens. I just hope they have a backup plan. That's all. I just hope they don't go into training camp with just these options.
Right.
Right. That's the funny thing is that I listen to Carmen Yurko every day. It's one of my favorite shows in the morning. I have a bunch of shows to listen to. That's one of them. Religiously, Yurko is one that's calling Charles Leno a turnstile, right? Yurko hates Charles Leno. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It is what it is. We all have differing viewpoints and opinions on the kid. But I mean, when you come down to it, take everything in a vacuum here. You're talking about a dude that brings like I was talking about once we got out of that portion of that podcast: longevity, durability, and leadership. Those are the three almost like the things that they're worth almost more in the offensive line room than anything else outside of the things that actually pertain to playing the position, the specific skill set. A guy that's not going to get hurt, a guy that goes out there and battles, and a guy that's going to provide leadership to the young guys. And what those young guys need right now is leadership. They're, who's the crusted veteran in the room now? Jermaine Ifedi? Mm-hmm. Is he the guy that's going to provide leadership? The guy that's going to be gone after 12 in the next 12 months?
Whitehair, I would think it's Cody Whitehair to be your quote unquote leader, if you will, but he's not the raw, crusty type.
Right. Right. Charles Leno was that dude, right? Charles Leno has that personality. He's got the voice, 7-year vet is it 7 years, right? Or is it 5?
7, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's been here long enough,
mm-hmm.
Hasn't missed a start and,
it's not even that, it's for me, it's just a viable option, right? Obviously,
sure.
Wasn't an all-pro, wasn't a great left tackle, we're not saying a pound on the table for Charles Leno. We're just saying that give me a better option. Give me a better option that you have upgraded at that position. I think that's what Olin was trying to say as well. It's like, you need to upgrade. You can't just, fling guys away because you want to create salary cap space, or you're tired of Leno's play the last couple of seasons. You need to have a better option at that position, especially that's a vital, critical position for your offense. So that's all I'm saying is who's your option. And for me, Jenkins right now is not a viable option.
All right, well, let's get the opinion of Chris Emma from 670 The Score. There he is. What a handsome young man. Chris, how are you?
Well, that's the greeting I want to get into this. Let's go. What's going on, guys?
Hi, Chris.
Things are going well. Thanks very much for joining us. We've been having a heated debate with people in the chat room who are bashing Charles Leno Jr., the former left tackle of the Chicago Bears. Danny, Neil, and I aren't as devout Charles Leno haters as many fans in Chicago are. So I would love to start the conversation with you about Charles Leno. What was your thought about his play with the Chicago Bears over the last few years, and were you surprised at his release and the fact that apparently Tevin Jenkins is going to be moved into that left tackle position?
Yeah, I guess you got to start with a tip of the cap for a former 7th-round pick who starts 93 consecutive games and really takes on that spot and held his own. He was really he brought stability to that position, and that was something I don't think even Phil Emery could have predicted when he took him 7th overall. There's no, Charles Leno carved out the kind of career that anybody would want to have in the 7th round. But that said, in recent years, he had not played up to that kind of caliber play. He's not been what you wanted out of a starting left tackle in the NFL. He's not been horrible. He was a mixed bag, but the problem is you want somebody who can really stabilize that position, and in particular with the offensive line. So I think they made the right move. I think they needed to seek an upgrade, and in this tackle class, it was so deep, and you knew somebody could fall. You knew if it wasn't Tevin Jenkins, it was going to be somebody else. There was going to be that opportunity, especially after taking Justin Fields. You wanted to stabilize that position for the long term, and really, it didn't make sense to go out and get a big-name free agent. It didn't make sense to pay that much for a starting left tackle. Charles Leno's best upside was the fact that he was cheap for kind of that bottom-tier salary for a starting left tackle. So now you start over, you get a guy in the 2nd round, he's going to be even cheaper than Leno was under contract. So it all makes sense.
Chris, the issue I have with the whole thing is Tevin Jenkins. I scouted him, Neil scouted him, and the people that we've talked to in the NFL have all said that they project him as the best position at right tackle, possibly guard. To flip the kid over because he made 7 starts in college and assume he's playing left tackle in the NFL, to me it's a hard sell. Is there any? I would assume that there's got to be a plan B, right? There's got to be a plan B to go out and get a veteran to at least give him competition for that spot.
Yeah, I'd start by saying that I think that Jenkins can handle left tackle. Hearing from his offensive coordinator, Casey Dunn, earlier this week, and he said that he was moved. Jenkins was playing right tackle out of necessity. They had major fallout on the right side of their offensive line, and the best reserve could only play left tackle, so they kind of forced him into the right tackle spot. We'll see how he handles it. He's obviously got to get accustomed to going up in practice with some of these Bears pass rushers, and it's a good test before you really get out there to full stadium game action. So I think they have him penciled in as that starting left tackle, and that's kind of where they project him out to play. I'm not going to doubt this kid in anything, too, because you look at his background. And Mike Gundy said it. This is a guy who really kind of got into football just a couple of years ago. He was a raw talent. He didn't quite understand how good he was or could be. And it really clicked as a junior. And Gundy said this is a kid who's going to keep getting better and better. He's a 1st-round value who fell into the 2nd round and could ultimately prove to be the best tackle in this class. And I'm willing to buy into that. I think the sky is really the limit for this kid. And, yeah, I'd pencil him in as that starting left tackle. You might have some ebbs and flows for a rookie season. He might struggle often at times, which is natural for any rookie stepping into the league. But I like his value long-term there.
Hey, so Chris, in terms of we got Jenkins here, we got Borum here. In terms of what you're hearing as far as projections across the line, especially where Borum slots in, I don't necessarily think he's a right tackle either. I think he's a guy that shifts inside in a position that's really kind of logjam right now in terms of inside offensive linemen. What are you hearing right now, if anything, about what this line looks going forward?
Yeah, I think they're figuring that one out. They got good quality depth now, which you couldn't really say a year ago. You remember that game in November in Tennessee where they were just kind of putting pieces together and you don't know who was going to be starting. You didn't know. It was just a mixed bag of crap, to be honest. You didn't know what was going to happen. I think they have quality depth. And I guess to answer your question with Borum, I probably see him more as that swing tackle. He can play left and right. He's got versatility, as you mentioned, on the inside as well. But I think they like their depth on the inside. I see Mustafa projecting out as your starting center. The guard positions, you obviously got Whitehair. You got James Daniels coming back. You got Alex Bars, who's played well. So you got good competition there. And then now you got better depth at tackle. Once you add, Ifedi can obviously swing between guard and tackle. So he's probably your guy who's more likely to move inside if you need some depth there. But I think they like their options here. And with Borum, too, I mean, look, this is a guy who's got good experience at the SEC level. He's a bit of a project. He's a fifth-round pick, of course, but you like to see what his potential could be. And maybe he's somebody who can plug into a starting spot, if not this season, then down the road.
How tight was that war room on draft day? And really the day after in terms of these trades? How early did you suspect, sense, hear anything going down in terms of trading up to get Justin Fields and then making that trade on Friday, giving up 83, giving up 52, I believe is what it was, and then moving up to get both of those young guys?
Yeah, it became clear kind of on Thursday that the Bears wanted to make that move. It was right. And Ryan Pace said so himself. He was calling Dave Gettleman earlier that day. Guess they had a 20-year relationship, which I didn't really know about, but he said, here's what we're going to do. And this is what you do as a GM, is you set up the framework on these deals. So the noise got out there. It was clear the Bears wanted to make that trade up. I had heard from a source that the Bears weren't really looking or weren't really going to be able to make that big move up, up to the Falcons pick, for example, or beyond that point. But it just became reasonable when Justin Fields started to fall. And the biggest domino was the 49ers taking Trey Lance over Mac Jones. I think Trey Lance would have been more in demand in the top 10. And if he didn't go third overall, he would have gone top 5 or somewhere in the top 10. And there's less of a likelihood that that Jones and Fields would fall out. So once the Niners went with Lance, and then you got past some of those hurdles, the Lions going tackle, the Broncos going corner, and you started to see the potential of maybe this is going to work out. To Ryan Pace's credit, they were ready. They had the trade framework set up. You got, 10, 15 minutes on the clock? I can't even remember at this point, but they had everything set up in place, which everybody does when these trades up, but they had every scenario worked out. I don't know if they realistically expected this. Certainly not months ago, but especially even going into Thursday night, I think they would have assumed somebody would make that move up for Fields. Somebody would jump into the top 10 and offer more than they could or more than they would want to, and that's a wrap. You take Greg Newsome or you take Tevin Jenkins maybe with the 20th pick, but it all worked out. It all came together for them.
Speaking of Fields, and obviously the excitement around town is you can feel it. Bears fans are excited. I think you media guys are excited to finally have a story to cover a quarterback other than Nick Foles and Andy Dalton. But I don't know, just wondering how you felt. Like, to me, this felt different. This pick felt different in 2017. 2017 felt like a gut punch when they passed up Deshaun Watson and traded up for Trubisky. This felt like it was an excitement, like a real exciting pick. I wonder how you felt.
Well, yeah, I think it's a little bit about how Fields carries himself. This guy is a star, and he treats himself, he's got this humble demeanor, and you'll love it, but he's also got the swagger that says, I know I'm that good. Like, he's got the confidence you want in a franchise quarterback, and that's just one of many other boxes he checks. You see the talent, it's undeniable. He's done it at the highest level. This isn't like a case of Trubisky where it's 13 starts in North Carolina and lost in the Sun Belt. I mean, this guy took Ohio State to the national championship game, and beyond that, he helped petition to have Ohio State even play. This guy's a leader. He's done it at the highest level. You'll love everything about this kid. Football intelligence is off the chart. You can't find really a bad thing to say about Justin Fields. And that's the thing. There's no downside to this pick. I mean, it's such, and you never know projecting out these young quarterbacks in the first round. But I think if he failed, it would prove a lot of people wrong. I think a lot of people believe in this kid. And everybody kind of sees the upside and wants to give him that benefit of the doubt. It brings a lot of excitement to this mix now where you're talking about a guy who has superstar potential, and it's clear as day. He wouldn't surprise anybody if he pans out that way.
So, all right. So week 1, who's starting for the Bears at quarterback? What do you think?
It's probably Dalton. I think it has to be Dalton, but I think at the same point, Ryan Pace really kind of threw a pail of water over the excitement on Thursday night when he said in his opening remarks, Andy Dalton's the quarterback. I think everybody kind of, went from 60 to 0 and took it down a notch. But at the same time, I get what they're doing. You don't want to set up right away once you draft this kid and say he's in a competition, because that means he could lose the competition. It means you're setting him up for failure potentially. They want to give him every opportunity to go in, starting with rookie minicamp next weekend, through the offseason program and beyond into training camp to show what he can do. Matt Nagy said it, and he means it. They'll know when he's ready. And they don't want to have a situation like 2017 where you're waiting for Mike Glennon to fail before you bring in Mitchell Trubisky. They want Justin Fields to succeed before they move aside from Andy Dalton. I don't think there's any scenario in which Andy Dalton goes out and plays at, that kind of Pro Bowl caliber level, and he just doesn't give up this job. Maybe he does. Maybe it proves me wrong. But this is a matter of when Justin Fields is ready. It could still be before week 1. He might just go out there in training camp, light it up, and you say you can't go away from him. You can't hold this kid back. You can't go with Andy Dalton in this situation. I'd still bet on Dalton being that starter out of the gates. But I think they're comfortable knowing when Fields is ready. And I don't think it's going to be a scenario where you're waiting for Dalton to fail. I think at some point Fields just shows you can't hold him back. You can't keep him in the number 2 spot, and he's your guy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've been a huge proponent of not baptizing quarterbacks by fire. A lot of times where the quarterback ends up and how successful they are depends on the entry point. In this situation, with a young guy that is as talented as he is, I'd be scared to do that. And I'm 100% with you. I would at least pencil Andy Dalton in right now as a starter and allow Justin Fields to go ahead and prove me wrong as a head coach. Now, as a head coach and as the GM, my big suspicion going into the draft was that the big caveat that Pace had to save his job, or to get an extension rather, was that he had to show aggressiveness going up and get dudes in this draft, getting the quarterback savior, getting a guy to protect him on the offensive line. Do you have that same suspicion, or am I kind of just off base and crazy?
I think it was part of it. I think the Bears wanted to see, and by Bears I mean George McCaskey, Ted Phillips, and the brass at the top, wanted to see some proof of why is this going to be better long-term? What have you done this offseason? And, there was nothing before last Thursday night, almost a week ago exactly to the moment here, where you said the Bears are better. Like, they got better this offseason. I still don't know if they quite got totally better, but you feel better, at least long-term, when you project Justin Fields as your starting quarterback. I'm very fascinated to know what George McCaskey had in mind to measure Ryan Pace, because if he judged it like, quite frankly, any other owner would, Pace is not on the job. Like, Pace has not earned a 7th season, but he still has the trust of McCaskey. So what is George seeing that others, the Rooneys or the Wilfs or whoever you want to plug into that seat, what is McCaskey seeing that they wouldn't of a 7-year, going on 7-year GM who's not won a playoff game to this point? I don't know, but whatever it is, I mean, he has a lot of belief in Ryan Pace. That's very clear, and I think the ability to go up and make this move for Fields, and even to another extent to make this move for Jenkins, it reinforces the confidence that McCaskey had in Pace.
Which of the other draft picks that Ryan Pace made this year excites you based on what you've learned about that particular player?
I think Daz Newsome can be really good. I mean, this is a guy who it's a kind of maybe a lazy comparison, but he's got the Darnell Mooney kind of factor when you're talking about 5th-round receiver who didn't blow you away with the tape. The numbers didn't quite pop, but this is a guy who's got speed and the ability to be coached up and maybe emerge as that complementary target to Robinson and Mooney. And they had to make a move at receiver. They had to go out and draft somebody. I thought if they were to stand pat at 20, they could be looking at wide receiver, and I also thought they might be looking receiver in the 2nd round. I just don't see this position at all being settled right now. When you talk about an unknown for Robinson after the 21 season, Mooney, a good rookie season, but you don't quite know what he's going to do in that sophomore year, so to speak. Anthony Miller, who knows if he's going to be on the team for training camp. Same with Javon Wims. Same with Riley Ridley. They needed to answer something at receiver and to add some youth and some potential. I believe in Mike Furry's ability to develop these receivers. He's proven himself as a really strong quality receivers coach. And I'm excited to see what he can do with Daz Newsome. The potential's there. He's got that speed factor, and he seems like a Matt Nagy type receiver, at least the receiver that Matt Nagy has in mind, where, the guy who can take a top off of defense, run on the other side of Allen Robinson, be different than A-Rob, and draw, defenders, maybe get a safety cheating in and you beat him over the top, whatever it may be. Newsome strikes me as the kind of guy that Matt Nagy and the Bears wanted. And, yeah, I'm intrigued to see what he can do this year as a rookie, because I was intrigued with Darnell Mooney last year, and he really proved himself well as a rookie.
What about Allen Robinson? A lot of people in the chat room are inquiring about contract extension. You think that might be on the horizon, given that a contract extension could help with the cap?
I've not heard anything yet about contract talks, but obviously they have until July 15th, so they got 2+ months to work that out. Look, they left off on bad terms. It ended in mid-September last year, right before Tariq Cohen got his deal. And that was a deal that really caught Cohen by surprise even. He was not in long-term negotiations with the Bears. And Robinson's party took it as a slight. They were disappointed by the way these things went. They thought they were going to have a deal done as early as January of 20. And then obviously pandemic hits, the finances are thrown off a little bit. They still thought they were going to get a deal done before the start of the regular season last year. And they were far apart. Robinson wanted in the neighborhood of that $20 million. The Bears wanted closer to 16. And they kind of hit in the middle when you look at the market for receivers this offseason. Kenny Dolladay topped the list at $18 million. So split the middle between 20 and 16. They kind of had the market set. They probably could have reached an agreement at some point. But the Bears were also aware that this was a market for receivers that was going to run dry. It was a deep draft class at receiver. It was not a deep free agent group. They felt really confident that Robinson was not going to, that he wasn't going to deserve that $20 million. He played his ass off last season. He proved himself, 200 catches over the last 2 years. Speaks for itself. He's proven himself as a top-tier receiver, maybe top 10 in the league. I think they want to keep him around. I think they're going to work toward that. And obviously you look at the finances differently in a year from now where, that TV money is going to start trickling in a little bit more. You're not, after a year of the cap going down, it's going to keep going up, up, up. So they have the ability to strike a deal. It just depends on their willingness and whether they're able to put things behind them from a year ago, get back to the bargaining table and work this thing out.
I got to follow up on Mike Fury, the wide receiver coach. I have to ask because I'll be crucified by people like Chubbs in the chat room if I don't follow up. Fury's been getting a lot of heat lately among Bears fans. In fact, Danny Shimon,
I'm one of them. Yes.
On our last show, was questioning Fury's ability to help these receivers progress. Danny, you want to pick it up from there and ask?
My other thing, Chris, and I know Fury has a relationship with Matt Nagy going back to their playing days in the Arena League and all that stuff. But the thing with me is, these young receivers, none of them have developed under Fury. We're talking about Anthony Miller. They're claiming he still can't run routes. I mean, why is he not being coached up? Javon Wims, they're saying he also, he's not learning the offense or whatnot. Riley Ridley, a 4th-round pick, can't get active for a game. And things like, and they're bringing in guys like Ted Ginn off the scrap heap, Dwayne Harris, and they're playing them. These guys are running routes. So to me, why is Mike Fury getting a pass? Nagy cleared out all of his basically his offensive coaching staff except for Mike Fury last offseason. I want to see the players getting developed and getting better. That's my thing is these young guys are not getting better. After that rookie year for Anthony Miller, he's been downhill since then. Mooney came in as a rookie, he was productive. Let's see how he produces this upcoming season. So that's my concern with Mike Fury.
Yeah, I'll put it in a different example with, in Miller and Wims in particular. You look at that game against the Saints before C.J. Gardner-Johnson took the shot from Javon Wims. There was Furry on the sideline was saying, don't interact with him. Don't get involved. What does Wims do? First play back in the field, punches him. They spent the week leading up to that playoff game. It was Furry again, telling all of his guys, don't get involved. He's trying to antagonize you. He's trying to do this. Miller does it. I know it's a different example than learning the playbook, but these are guys who are trying to be coached. This is a different example than running a certain route or doing things the right way, but they're not absorbing it. It's on them. The Bears have not done a good enough job bringing in receivers who are able to adapt to this. And talking about Miller and Wims and Ridley in particular, Ridley was a 4th-round pick, and they believed in him. He was coming out of Georgia, coming out of a high level of college football, and he never made that jump. He never proved himself the ability to get on the field when they were even in a desperate need to fill the receiving group. It's on these guys. I don't blame Furry for that. At some point, they're just not taking it. They're not comprehending everything they need to do to be that level player. And Darnell Mooney kind of busted that too. Busted the narrative around those other 3 guys. I mean, he's the guy who came in as the 5th-round pick, not the 2nd-round pick like Miller, with a few years under his belt, and the idea that he should be absorbing this offense. Mooney proved all these guys that where they should be. He showed the kind of caliber receiver that Miller, Williams, and Ridley all should be at this point in their careers. I don't blame Furry for this. I think he's done a good enough job. I think it's on those 3 guys.
Neil, my only thing about that is I understand, the Miller thing, that the fights and all that stuff, but it's 3 guys, right? One's a knucklehead. Two is a knucklehead. All 3 are knuckleheads. They can't get on the field. That's my thing. A coach has got to coach them up. That's my only thing with Fury. But we can move on.
No, I mean my whole thing on that is and I've been preaching this, the personal accountability and responsibility. Javon Wims can't control his emotions and drops touchdowns. Miller can't run routes and also can't control his emotions. At what point, me personally, I thought those guys should have been cut, had their bags packed, and in an Uber on the way back to Chicago to clean out their apartments in halftime, right? Yeah. So I mean, that's where my stance is on that. Like, I can't stand these players that go out on the field and they just can't function from a mental and emotional standpoint. It drives me crazy. So I guess like just hinging on the back end of that in terms of other personnel transactions moving forward. What are you sensing is going to happen with this roster? My hope is that Miller and Wims are both going to be gone, but let's look at other positions too. We talk about Akeem Hicks having a massive contract. I don't ever want to get rid of Akeem Hicks. I think he's the engine of that defense. It would break my heart if we get rid of him. It didn't break my heart with Fuller. It pissed me off with Fuller. It would break my heart with Akeem Hicks. And then we talk about other guys that are just not going to be in the mix, like Jimmy Graham, like Nick Foles. Like, what do you suspect is going to happen moving forward over the next couple of months?
I guess I'll start at quarterback. I think they're going to actively try to trade Nick Foles, and there are some teams that could use that veteran. Maybe it's the Jets, for example. They bring in Zach Wilson. Foles will be kind of the right backup fit. But look, I mean, there's other backups out there. I mean, I don't know who's going to want to take on that salary. They might just be stuck with it. That's your third-string quarterback, so be it. The receiver spot, look, I mean, I think they brought in 2 quality additions with Marquise Goodman and Damiere Byrd. And look at when we talk about with Wims, Ridley, and Miller. Those are those are examples of the receivers they thought they would be. Those are guys who bring that speed element, kind of Nagy type receivers. I think those are the guys who make 1 or 2 of Miller and Wims expendable. Maybe they give Ridley another year, try to figure it out, but I'd bet against him at this point. And with Hicks, I don't think Hicks is going anywhere. I thought in March, I think even he thought in March that he was going to be gone. They managed to keep him around, which kind of surprised me. It also kind of surprised me that Jimmy Graham still survived on this roster. I did not see that one happening, but they made the cap situation work out apparently. So I think Hicks is back. I think if there was a scenario in which they had Graham on the roster but Hicks was cut, that'd be a catastrophe. I mean, you said it, Neil. I mean, you can't imagine this defense without Akeem Hicks. He's the engine. He's the beating heart. He's the kind of relentless presence up front that you need. So I think, and frankly, they're missing defensive line depth after this offseason. They lost some quality guys. Brent Urban was a key contributor. Obviously, Nick Williams a couple years ago, Roy Robertson Harris leaving this offseason to Jacksonville. They're thin up front, and they can't afford injuries, and they certainly can't afford to release somebody like that.
Well, one other position, we kind of touched on this guy a little earlier, Tariq Cohen. I think with the addition of Damian Williams as a free agent, the drafting of Khalil Herbert, I think both those guys are better running backs, better instincts at running back than Tariq Cohen. I know he just signed an extension last year. I'm curious if your thoughts of, does Cohen have to battle for a roster spot this training camp?
I'm curious. Yeah, that's a good question because I didn't see the Khalil Herbert pick coming. I thought they were pretty well set with those top 3. I think Cohen's probably safe. Maybe Herbert's an insurance policy in case Cohen isn't quite ready for training camp, but all indications I've heard is that he will be ready for training camp. I mean, that'll be 10 months after he suffered the torn ACL and 9+ after he had the procedure. So I think they're expecting him to be ready. It might just be an insurance policy or running back depth. Herbert's a good pickup. I mean, you like what he did at Virginia Tech coming over from Kansas. He's got speed. He's got explosiveness. He's a home run hitter at that running back spot. And Ryan Pace, to his credit, has done a really good job identifying mid to late round running backs. And Jordan Howard's obviously the perfect example of that. Dave Montgomery's fit well. Jeremy Langford in the 4th round had a couple of good years. I mean, and obviously Cohen, they've done a good job identifying talent. They know what to look for in that running back position. So it's a good question, Danny. I'm really curious how that one plays out. And, it's one of those things where it's nice to have that depth, but ultimately at some point you end up really getting that tested. So we'll see how that one plays out.
And in terms of the coaching staff, I have one final question there is with the have we got any inkling in terms of the inner workings between Sean Desai and Mike Penn? I know he's a bit brought in as the defensive advisor. Is Penn going to be involved at all in the defensive game plan? Was he involved in helping out with scouting some of these draft prospects? Do we have any word on that or any sort of indication?
It's a good question on the draft prospect. My guess is no. I don't know that for certain. He probably cracked some film on some of these guys, helped out a little bit, but I mean, they kept the draft room limited, and I doubt he had a raised voice in this matter. My understanding is that his role is going to be simply as that advisor, and they truly mean that. I don't think he's going to be interfering with Sean Desai or some of these defensive coaches, because the Bears have had an offensive advisor. They had Brad Childress work that kind of role. Now you got Tom Herman is stepping into that position on the offensive side. Matt Nagy likes that. I mean, my thought is it's probably too many cooks in the kitchen a lot of times. I certainly didn't think that helped with Trubisky's development, having way too many quarterback coaches and sounding boards, as they like to call it. But I think Pettin will be really good for Sean Desai, because he's going to be able to help kind of oversee different elements of this defense. He certainly knows the division, having coached in Green Bay the last couple of years. So I think it was a good pickup. I don't see him interfering. I think it's Desai's defense, and Bears have a lot of faith in Sean Desai.
Hey, so looking at the schedule moving forward, Chris, we got OTAs kicking off on May 25th after rookie minicamp. There's other teams around the league that are, diddling around with this idea that they're going to let players go ahead and opt out for OTAs, which I think is a load of garbage. But do you think anything like that is going to happen here in Chicago? What do you expect the participation OTA is going to be, going into June?
I'm curious about that myself. The Bears put out a statement as part of the union kind of, I don't know, movement. I don't know what you want to call it, and saying that the majority was the term they used of their locker room would not be there. And then Ryan Pace said they expected over 90% attendance. The players are non-committal. I don't think they know. I don't think they're quite clear on that. But you saw an example in Denver a couple days ago with, forgive me, I'm blanking out on the name, but they're starting right tackle.
John James.
Thank you. Yeah, season-ending injury. He's going to be losing his pay this year. I think that might force a lot of players back into the building. I also don't know if the union has the players' best interests in mind with this. It seems like kind of a grandstanding issue in terms of trying to fight for different things against the league. And I don't know how many players are truly comfortable with this, being put up against their coaches and being put up against their organizations in these cases. Obviously, if you're an established veteran, it's fine. I mean, there's guys who, Tom Brady's not going to be worried about proving himself in off-season program, and it is voluntary. You only have to be there for the veteran minicamp, the mandatory part. But I think it's created a little bit of discomfort between players, especially young guys. And look at some of the players we talked about in the Bears roster, guys like Darnell Mooney, for example, or some of these rookies that are stepping in. They don't want to be skipping out as being thrown into this union movement and saying we're not going to be out there. It creates a discomfort and natural friction entering a key offseason for this team. So my bet is that the majority of players will be out there, despite what the union said, saying the majority would not be there.
Chris, I've got a couple of questions from the chat room and then one final question from me, and I really appreciate your time. Larry Golden, one of our co-hosts here of Bulls 101, has asked any word on what they expect from Travis Gibson, the edge rusher who was a early day 3 pick from last year. And for that matter, any of the rookies from last year who didn't see any playing time, like an Artavius Pierce, an undrafted free agent. Are you hearing anything about their offseason development, what plans the Bears might have for those young guys?
I think Gibson's a guy they're kind of counting on to emerge this year. They brought him in understanding he might have to have that redshirt year, and they weren't really trying to put him out there in an uncomfortable spot when he wasn't ready. He came in kind of undersized, needed to be coached up, and you feel good about him being in that room with Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn. Those are two guys you want to be learning from. He was so open and excited to the opportunity to play alongside those guys and practice and lift and go through meetings, do everything you need to do with them. So I think they're expecting a jump from him this season. I expect to see him filled out a little bit more. I expect to see him a little bit more active, and I think they're going to try to move him into that rotation. And Barkevius Mingo stepped up, especially with Robert Quinn struggling last year. I thought Mingo emerged well as kind of that true number 2 rusher opposite Khalil Mack. I think they'd like to see Gibson kind of emerge into a role like that. At 2 or 3, be that rotational guy and really kind of press, especially if Quinn's going to have another down year this year. They want to see Gibson pressing him.
Chubbs has a question that I think all of us have who live here in the Chicago area and have gone down to Bourbonnais for so many years. Last year, they moved camp to Halas Hall, but because of the pandemic, nobody was allowed into camp. I don't even know if reporters were allowed into camp. What was your access last year? And have you heard anything about what access at Halas Hall now that they're having their preseason camp there? Have you heard anything about access for fans and reporters?
Yeah, reporters were allowed there. We had, the kind of same kind of vantage point. Fans honestly, I don't know what their plan was pre-pandemic. You remember they announced in January of 20 that they were going to be leaving Bourbonnais, and they said, at a later point they're going to decide what happens with getting fans there. And then obviously fans weren't allowed last year, so I think there might be limited access for some. I'm curious what that might be. They could coordinate, for example, a practice at a local high school like they've done the last few years. Lake Forest College has facilities and better access where you're not, driving up to the Halas access point is not great for general public. It's, I don't know if you've been up there, but it's kind of tucked away in a business park. And so Lake Forest College might play better for that kind of setting. I don't know. Maybe you borrow Ryan Field for a night and you jam as many fans as you can into the stands there. Maybe there's, bonus Soldier Field practices. I don't know what they're going to do, but I think they'd like to have fans, assuming everything goes as planned and you're able to, you're not having restrictions or mandates or things like that. I don't know if it's going to be at Halas Hall, but they'll figure out a way to do it somewhere.
But by the way, for the limited media access, I blame Sun-Times Patrick Finley for his sketches that he was doing on Twitter. Given all the secret plays that Nagy was drawing up.
He carved out his niche with those, man. That was impressive. He's a great artist.
I'll tell you, they need to hold those camps just because I bought all of this stuff at those camps. I mean, they sold T-shirts and hats and other paraphernalia like hotcakes. My final question for you, besides the great reporting you do at 670 The Score and the website on the Chicago Bears, you also cover other Chicago sports. In your latest column, you write about Tony La Russa. And so I have to ask.
I'm a Sox fan.
Yeah, Neil doesn't care about this question whatsoever. In fact, he probably finds glee that Tony La Russa didn't know part of an extra inning rule, which led to Liam Hendriks running bases in the 10th inning of the White Sox loss. This is a great column. You cover it from head to toe. Let me know why I should have, as a White Sox fan, why I should have faith in Tony La Russa managing the Chicago White Sox this season.
Do I have to? I mean, it's rough. I was as skeptical as anybody in October when they made this move. I rolled my eyes when his name was even mentioned at first. It felt like cronyism. It felt dirty, and it felt wrong. For a fan base that invested several years into this rebuild, buying in with these prospects, believing in everything that they were doing, and then Jerry brings in his buddy. It felt so wrong. Mm-hmm. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. I loved hearing him in spring training. I really was starting to buy in, hearing the way he was talking about adapting to these players, adapting to new age methods. I believe that his years, because since retiring in 11 and being around the game, ever since then, with different teams, with the Diamondbacks, Red Sox, with the Angels last year, I thought, okay, he's adapting. I give him a ton of credit. He really wants to prove everybody right. And he's proved everybody so wrong. Anybody who's willing to believe in him, it's been bad. He seems out of touch. He seems like he doesn't understand elements of the new age game. Yesterday was just one of several examples of how disconnected he is from his own team and from this 2021 baseball game. It's frightening because if he was to set the White Sox back just a couple wins this year for a season with so much potential, so much hope and excitement, you felt like it was the wrong hire. He's already done 4 games where he's cost them already. Yesterday was another example of it. I don't know what to say. I think I just don't see how this is going to work out.
Can I get a White Sox question in there real quick for the
White
Sox fan here? So for yesterday's issues, right? Where is his bench coach? Where is his coaching staff? Why aren't they there to help him, support him? That's my question.
I would love to know. That's a great question. That's one of those instances where, if a reporter had the regular access, be in the clubhouse, I would love to hear from other players. What was going on? What were you hearing? And I think the players would say it. I don't think the players are going to cover for this guy anymore because they're as frustrated as anybody else. Miguel Cairo's the bench coach. Where was he? Jerry Narin. He's a longtime manager. Where was he about Tony in this? Were any players saying, "Are you sure you want to have your out there? Are you sure you can't have Abreu running on here? Are you One, somebody else in that spot. Why is Danny Mendick not hitting for Billy Hamilton in that spot? Billy Hamilton can hit. I don't know. It's a great question.
My final straw will be if they bring in Albert Pujols, who just got designated for assignment today. If they bring in Pujols on this roster, I'm done. I'm out.
I mean, you hit the whole trinity. You got the Manny Ramirez, you got the Ken Griffey Jr. I started today actually forming my all-time White Sox wash-up lineup with Albert Pujols in the mix. So it fills it all out.
That's great. And you are great, Chris. One of the reasons I love you so much is because you are candid. You're telling it like it is. And I know there's a lot of people. My good buddy, Mike North, who works here at the Barroom Network, keeps defending Tony La Russa. And I'm like, Mike, come on. Just because he's old like you and me doesn't mean that we need to defend him. But he's still in his camp. But the honest evaluation is what you said. He just doesn't look like he quite has it. And hopefully that's temporary. And he's going to give us some confidence as White Sox fans. Chris, let people know where they can find you. This show is also on audio podcast as well. So let people know where they can find your work and where they can follow you on social media.
Yeah, 670 The Score, 670thescore.com, Odyssey app, and all the above. I mean, it's draft weekend's done, but now you got the mini camp, you get into the nitty gritty of this whole thing.
All right. Well, we're going to bug you again to be on the show. So thanks very much. There he goes. As soon as I said we're going to bug you again, we lost his connection. That is great. All right. We're going to take a quick little break and then come back with evaluation from Neil and Danny about the draft picks and the undrafted free agents. There's one guy in particular that I know Danny wants to talk about. I'm not quite sure. Neil.
A couple of guys.
Three guys. But there's one guy that you really, really like. See, this is called the tease, Danny, so people don't go away. We'll be right back in about a minute and a half.
Can be a more dynamic scorer. One of the things that we've harped on this year is the lack of shot creation from him. We haven't seen it as consistently as we'd like to.
When you come from Finland and you go to college and you don't work on those things because you're just so much better than everybody, you're so used to being able to shoot your three whenever you want it, you can fall into a lull in your working on your craft because it's worked for you. What you've been doing has worked. So why should I change it? And there's only so many guys like that come into the league that are like, man, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough yet. I need to work on this. I need to work on that. And there are guys that will come in the league and be like, you know what? I got here doing what I do. Why am I going to change it? Sometimes guys got to be punched in the mouth with some real
criticism. Is not hate, and praise is not fandom. When I'm criticizing Lauer, it's because I think he's better.
Quick note about our programming. This Sunday, the guys over at the Barfly Tailgate Show will not be on, as we will all be celebrating Mother's Day. And so happy Mother's Day to all of you Barflies out there, everyone that comes across our programming here. Happy Mother's Day. Hope you have a wonderful weekend with Mom. And let's bring the fellas back in. Danny Shimon. Oops, I shouldn't do that. I should do this. There they go.
There we go. So Chris just texted me. He said the laptop died right on cue. Apologize for the Irish goodbye.
I thought it was something Aldo said.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. It happens to me all the time. Reminds me of my dating life. Hey, would you mind? And they walk away. Gentlemen, would you like to talk more about Justin Fields and his play, or should we move on to the other draft picks and talk about that in depth?
I can talk whatever. We can talk about Justin Fields. What do the listeners want to talk about? Do you have questions about Justin Fields or any other draft picks, or we can just go on to the undrafted free agents? Up to you guys.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about Fields, and we'll get some thoughts from Neil to begin with. Neil, everybody is praising him, steal of the draft. Everyone's happy for Chicago. They finally got their quarterback and so forth. But what worries you about Justin Fields and potentially his development? Anything that you have seen in tape that you say, well, he needs to work on this and so forth. Give us your assessment on Fields.
Well, like we were talking about with Chris, my big thing is just not baptizing young kids by fire in situations where they don't need it, right? We've seen other highly regarded quarterbacks come into the league and fail miserably at their entry point. Not that the Bears, the organization, this team, specifically, is a bad entry point, but it's one of those things where Mitch could have had probably a better career had he not been thrust into the situation he was thrusted into, right? Had he been able to, sit behind insert veteran here for X number of months, years, whatever the case may be, what could have been the outcome, right? We've gone through a couple years of it with Sam Darnold. Now I know, Danny, you weren't a huge fan of Sam Darnold. I was much higher on him than you were. But again, when you talk about the entry point, thrusting Sam Darnold into the situation, I'm equally as concerned with Zach Wilson. By the same token, being thrust into a situation where you need to perform immediately and just kick ass immediately in a franchise that's largely been a dumpster fire for the past couple of decades, right? So.
But the thing with Zach Wilson, Darnold doesn't have, unfortunately, he's got a left side of the offensive line now with Becton and 100%. It's going to be solid. They got some passing, some receivers now you can throw to. So Darnold was bare bones basically when he came to New York, and that's why the left tackle for the Bears is a very key position that I'm going to keep an eye on this offseason. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I mean, you're 100% right. I was going to get to that. The Jets did a really good job of loading up their offensive line, giving him weapons and everything else. The Bears, I think, tried to do that. We've been vocal on who we thought could have been starting on the left side of the offensive line. We hoped it was Charles Leno for at least a year, some veteran leadership back there that has some savvy, that has done it for multiple games on end. 93 straight starts, I think, is what we were talking about. So that concerns me. But I think when it comes to Justin, I think he's a lot sharper in terms of his football mental capacity than what I was led on to think. And I'll forever reference that talk that he had with Nagy, where Nagy asked him, "Hey, do you remember that that formation or that play, or whatever the case it was, right, back when we were talking at a Zoom call, and the kid regurgitated it word for word, step for step." That to me is some impressive stuff. There's guys that would go into a situation like that, a conversation like that would fumble the ball and look like an ass. Right. So in terms of his recall and his football mental makeup, that kind of amps me up. That shows me he's further along than what I was led to believe during the course of the evaluation process between July and March. Right. So I think we're good to go there. I think he's going to be able to pick up things really quick, and that often is the biggest hurdle. Obviously, from a pure talent standpoint, a position specific standpoint, he's got all the tools and he's got the traits. And so that's not going to be an issue. I think that the ability for him to escape the pocket and be a demon with his feet is going to help him, especially now that we don't have a left tackle, or at least a proven one for that matter. And again, I hope Tevin Jenkins proves both of us wrong. I desperately hope that he proves both of us wrong. And we're sitting here in, October and we're saying, well, hey, we're 4 games in, pretty pleased with what we see, man. But I mean, in terms of Justin himself, I think it's just adjusting to a faster speed, a more sophisticated, version of the game of football. And let's see how long that takes. I think that's really all it is, because, I mean, we're talking about the guy that is either the second or third best player in this entire draft that, right, fell to us at 12.
Right. And the thing for me is what gives me more hope. And that recall of that play with Colin Nagy, that's a good point. That shows some of his, ability to recall plays and all that stuff. But the competitive toughness, the competitiveness of this kid. I mean, he showed it, not only in preseason with trying to get the Big Ten to play, he showed it in that Clemson game. But when he got drafted, and you can see all these like highlights and stuff when he got to call, he just got up, and there's one point that they gave him the hat and he said, "I'm just ready to work." He goes, "I'm not talking.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talking going on lately. I'm just ready to work." And Nagy was on the I think it was on making the airwaves. I forgot which show he was on, but he said that when they showed him the equipment room or the weight room at Halas Hall, and he said, "I'm gonna live in here." So that's the kind of stuff you want to hear from your quarterback. That's the kind of thing that gives me hope. And that's why I said this just feels different with this kid as opposed to 2017 with Trubisky. But we got a couple of questions I saw pop up here in the chat in terms of what are our concerns with Fields' mechanics. I really don't have many concerns. The one thing that I did highlight and did point out is when he puts the football back, he's got a little bit of a looping arm action. And he draws the ball way back, and instead of just kind of up here and ready to release it, he drops it right. It's kind of like a looping,
a little bit elongated, of a process, right? Yeah,
elongated arm action. So far, it hasn't affected him in college. That's the one thing that I'm going to keep an eye on in terms of see if John DeFilippo tries to, you don't want to touch it now, right? Because he's successful. It's been working for him throughout his whole career. If cornerbacks in the NFL are timing that, if they're keying that, and they start jumping passes and they start jumping routes on him, that's something that could concern me. That's something that DeFilippo and the coaching staff are going to have to take a look at. But as of right now, I'll let him go ahead and see what he does in terms of how he plays with that type of motion. I wouldn't touch it right now because he's been so successful. But if that's the one thing I'm going to keep an eye on and see if that needs to be touched up a little bit, sped up a little bit. But that's the only thing in terms of his mechanics. There are times he doesn't step into his throws. But a lot of times with these kids with the strong arms, they rely so much on their arm strength that they kind of half step into their motion. So, but there are other times when he's got a clean pocket in front of him. You see no problem him climbing the ladder, get into the pocket, step on his front foot, and get the ball off and throw a nice accurate throw downfield. So the one thing I'm looking forward to is seeing the deep passing game come back to Chicago's offense.
Absolutely.
I mean, those past couple of years, the Bears weren't going to go deep because he had a quarterback couldn't get the ball to them. Either A, he had no protection, or B, he just was inaccurate downfield. With Fields, you see him just dropping those bucket throws. I mean, in target, in the hands of receivers on the run. No adjustment needed or anything like that. That's what I'm looking forward to doing. Is extending that deep play. But in terms of getting back to Fields starting or not, for me, I think a little bit different than what you're saying. And I would just open competition. Andy Dalton, Justin Fields, the best man, the best player wins, right? I know you kind of want to have Dalton go in and kind of get Fields, but hey, if he goes in training camp, he goes in preseason and he's playing well, he's outplaying Andy Dalton, just like how Seattle did. I keep bringing this example up with Russell Wilson. They had signed Matt Flynn to a huge contract, but they brought in Russell Wilson, a third-round pick, and he outplayed Matt Flynn throughout the preseason and everything. And Pete Carroll said, he goes, my players know that the best player needs to play. And at that point, it was Russell Wilson. They started him and they never looked back. So if Fields is that advanced and he's outplaying Dalton, for me, go ahead, go start him week 1. But if he's not, and you got to take in consideration who's playing, who your offensive line is as well. But if he's not, you're going to have to, give Dalton the start.
And what I mean by that, though, is that let's not just go ahead and thrust Fields into QB1, right? Just for the sake of the fact that he was your number 1 draft choice, right? Like I'm 100% for quarterback competition. If Fields goes in and burns it up, prior to week 1, let's go ahead and give the kid the ball, man. 100%. I am team best players have to play, regardless of how old you are, of your experience, of whatever the case may be. The best players have to play. That the best 11 goes on the field to help us win. That's 100% what I mean there. Not just going ahead and throwing guys in there for the sake of.
Alex Sims has a question. He says, side note, I wonder if you guys feel like Fields and Mac Jones will be better than Trey and Zach. And I think there's a really good chance of that. I think when you make projections or predictions about who's going to be the better quarterback that's drafted and so forth, you got to look at the environment, you got to look at the cast and so forth. And I think Mac Jones is going into the perfect situation for him. He's very much a Tom Brady-like quarterback, and so he's moving into that same coaching staff that coached Brady. And if you have confidence that in John DeFilippo, then I think that Justin Fields can develop very nicely here. As for Trevor Lawrence, I'm not quite sure who's going to be coaching that guy up there or down there in Jacksonville. Maybe you guys know.
It's Darrell Bevell is the offensive coordinator.
Okay, so he's in good hands. And as for Trey Lance, I think he's going to be in good hands too, because they really are committed. I mean, the owner of the team said, we'll have him sit for 2 years if necessary. So that would be good. But it's going to be close. But I would not at all be surprised if Justin Fields and Mac Jones are the best two quarterbacks coming out of this draft.
In terms of fit, I mean, Trey Lance is a nice fit for his skill set in that offense, what he does from his experience at North Dakota State in terms of playing that pro style system. But the thing is, he only thrown 386 passes in his career. So, that's the thing they're going to have to monitor it and look at. And they don't have to rush him either if they don't want to. I mean, they have Jimmy Garoppolo, who's a solid veteran starter. And if they want to start off the season with him and see how things go, chances are Garoppolo's going to get injured, and then that's an opportunity for Trey Lance to go ahead and come in and start. So I think that and a team around him is a solid team as well in terms of offensive line, receivers, defense, and all that stuff, and a really good play caller. Zach Wilson worries me a little bit, and you touched on a little bit in terms of the Jets. Well, they're doing a good job now in getting kind of fortifying the offensive line for him, getting him some weapons on the outside. But man, he's been thrown into this situation where it's New York. It's a big market. We talked about it on draft night where he's going
to be the savior.
Right. He's going from a small town in Utah to now big city lights. He's number 2 overall pick. They bypass, guys like Fields and Mac Jones and Trey Lance for him. So that's a lot of pressure on him. If he gets off to a bad start, New York can be rough. And I think Joe Flacco is the backup there. So Flacco's not going to start. So it's going to be Zach Wilson going in and starting, right? So is Flacco in Phil? I think Flacco's in Philadelphia. I'm sorry, he's in Philadelphia. So yeah, I don't think they have the backup there yet with the Jets. However, that's a guy that worries me in terms of what he's going to be thrust into, not in terms of his talent and what he could probably become. It's just the environment again. And I think with Fields here is if Nagy does right by Fields, and I mean by have a plan. He says he's got a plan for him. I hope he has a plan for him, because he's supposed to have a plan for Trubisky as well, and that backfired because Trubisky couldn't execute his plays. So what did he do? He just kind of threw everything out the window. Right. So that's the thing. It's like have a real plan here and try and develop this kid and bring him along. He's got special traits, special talents. If you need to be a conservative offense, if you will, run the ball 20, 25 times, utilize Fields in the RPO, utilize his legs as part of your offense, and then have him throw between 15 and 25 throws a game. To win, that's fine as long as your defense is holding the other team down. That's the thing you have to do. It's just you have to have a plan and stick to it.
Anybody know who James?
Yeah,
Morgan
I was actually just going to bring that up. James Morgan.
Yeah, that's the guy we had on our show.
4th round pick from last year.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Totally forgot. Well, good luck to him, because he might be seeing some action. All right, let's move our attention. I think we've covered enough of Fields. Let's move our attention to Tevin Jenkins. I'm not really sure how much we need more.
I think we've discussed Tevin Jenkins.
Yes, we know that we have some concerns about him playing at left tackle. More on that as we start seeing some of the tape that comes out of camp and so forth. We'll be watching that carefully. And trust me, nobody wants to be wrong more on this subject than Neil, Danny, and myself on that. Hopefully he will be the starting left tackle, and he looks like a Pro Bowl doing it. Be that as it may, let's now move to the right tackle that was selected in the 5th round, Larry Borum from Missouri. Neil, your thoughts on Larry?
Larry, when I really got into breaking his film down was really interesting. Obviously, he's a big old dude. He's 6'5", he's 322 pounds. Had a really good pro day. He was down 25, 30 pounds from his playing weight. He was kind of big and sloppy-ish, throughout the course of the year. And I've been very vocal on what I feel about guys that really get down to business. They fix their body, they adjust their weight going into pro day. And that's a massive indicator that, they are serious about their career playing the game of football. But I think what you see with this guy is that, he's got really long arms that really helps him. He moves really well in space, given his size on tape as it was, back during the season. And he does appear very light on his feet. He's not a very twitched up guy. He does show some stiffness, and he can easily get beat by a really athletic edge. He needs some work in pass pro technique and fundos. In his stance, I would question his dexterity a little bit. He can be clunky in his drops as well. He kind of labors to get depth. and that will allow him to get beat. And there was at times I also see him panic a little bit. He starts crossing his feet over, and he also plays really high. He struggles redirecting when not engaged, almost seemingly as though he's like stuck in the mud. Right. So, but I mean, on the positive end, like while he is engaged, he does move his feet very well. He shows solid functional strength. And, the 21 reps on the bench, that does show on film. He doesn't display a very powerful punch as someone like a Tevin Jenkins. He does need to improve his strength, but he doesn't get punked around out there. Like he's functionally competitive from a strength standpoint. To me, he has to put in more work and effort into moving bodies. I question his nastiness and his aim streak. Maybe that's just a lack of strength and it hampers his ability to finish. He and Tev are two different players on film, right? I mean, if you watch the highlights, Larry Borum, like he could throw some guys around. He's got really good players, but the wise man once said, like, everybody has a good plays on highlights, right? And so that's why we watch game film. He's very productive as a run blocker. He gets forward momentum and he's able to get push up front with decent leverage. I could see him winding up inside, as we're talking about earlier. I could see him winding up inside, as his ability to mirror and move with ends and edges could potentially be a liability. However, he shows the ability to function laterally, pretty decently well for as big as he is and as raw as he is. My guess is they saw a guy talking about the front office, talking about Pace, talking about Castillo. They saw a guy that has the ability to move as well as he does, a guy that dropped a ton of weight. He's in the process of reconstructing his body. And now he's just got to improve his strength and coach up to use his body better in the arena. I do like a lot of the things that he showed on tape. He's a really intriguing, player that, shows a lot of promise. It's just a matter of where his best fit is. Is it right tackle? Is it right guard? I think he's a right side of the ball type player. That's kind of where I'm at on that. He was an interesting watch. He had a really, I wouldn't say it was a good game at all. It was compared to I watched Alabama and then I watched LSU. Watched those three games. Georgia was easily the worst game of the three against Alabama and LSU. Like, he performed really well. It's just when he's against a really twitchy guy on the edge, that's where he shows himself to be a ton of life.
Right. Yeah, and I went over that. I went over his report on Sunday, but yeah, same thing. The size, the thick frame is what I like about him. I think he's got a strong grip. You see a guy torquing defenders and throwing them into turning them off the line of scrimmage. Can block down and wash interior defensive linemen. So he's got that size to be able to go ahead and do that. But yeah, I mean, same thing. Some of the negatives is the stiff hips. I noticed that he lumbers. He's a heavy-legged player. When you're trying to get him out to the second level, sometimes he doesn't reach the second level defender, and when he does reach it, he doesn't sustain his block. So those are things that really annoy me as well. And then, he doesn't finish. We had a highlight where I pointed out to where Aldo ran it last on Sunday, where he came out around, he pulled, and there was a defender at the end there, edge setter. He doesn't bury him. And the guy just kind of slips his block and ends up making a play downfield. So it's like, you got to go out there, you got to bury him. You got to be nasty. And I think somebody could play right here. So he comes out, doesn't bury the guy, and then all of a sudden
he barely gets a hand on him to start.
So, plays like that. And so that's why, I think he'll give him versatility in terms of he can be a backup right tackle, probably right guard or most likely right guard. But he's going to be a guy that's going to be a backup. I think he makes a team depending on depth, in terms of how this offense line plays out. But I think, he gives you some intrigue in terms of size, strength, and an ability. He performed pretty well in the SEC conference. So that's something you have to keep in mind as well. But yeah, he's got things to work on. And if he's lost weight and he maybe is a little bit, he's got a little more spring in his step, if you will, coming around and trying to pull and do stuff like that, that'll be a positive. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that where he doesn't finish the edge setter at the end, and you're a pulling guard, you're a lead guard, and the guy just slips your block and makes a play. That's bad for me.
Yeah, that bothers the hell out of me.
Right.
Got asked in the chat room, I think it was Alex, do you see Larry Borum as a potential replacement for James Daniels next season? Well, the issue is that James Daniels on the last year of his contract, and Cody White here has a potential out in his contract after the 2021 season. So those two guys could be playing for their futures. If you can re-sign James Daniels at a cheaper deal than what Cody Whitehair is making and Larry Borum can move into a starting role, then it's pretty clear. Whitehair will be gone because of the salary cap issue. But you've got depth now at the offensive line, particularly in the middle of the offensive line. So there's some possibilities as to what the Bears can do. Let's just hope that they get into a really tough decision and that everybody's playing well. And
actually, don't forget about Alex Bars. Alex Bars played really well right guard. So if that scenario plays out and you lose Whitehair and now you resign Daniels and put him in left guard, Alex Bars gets the first shot at right guard for me.
Right, exactly. So some potential depth there could be, and salary cap considerations could be the answer to that question. All right, anything else on Borum before we move on? All right.
No, I think with Borum, I'd be surprised if he plays more than 10 snaps a game, this upcoming fall because of the aforementioned depth that we're talking about. With we got Daniels and Mustafa and Bars and Whitehair. And I mean, even if Eddie's a guy that is going to get the next look inside if one of those guys go down, because then you have Wilkinson that can come in and play right tackle. I'm not even sure that if Eddie's going to be starting right tackle. I think Wilkinson gives you a lot more athletic ability on the edge. You're going to hang with a lot more athletic guys than if Eddie can. Cement blocks, right? Mm-hmm. That's even a big time question for me. So it's like, where does Larry Borum fit in this roster currently, and where are the snaps at for him? At best, I think he's going to be a depth guy this fall. He probably gets 10 snaps a game, spells some of these guys that are more established. I don't see him beating anybody out going into September. He's probably going to be the number 6 inside. So he's got a ladder to climb. I do think though that if you go ahead and put him in a phone booth, he's at least functional in a phone booth, and I think that he is functional as a run blocker. It's just his pass pro needs a lot of work. And I'm not sure he's ever played inside. I didn't go that far back into the film to see if he ever had any experience, playing next to center.
He's got 2 games at left guard.
Got 2 games at left guard. Well, there you go. I mean, we're talking about 7 games for Tevin Jenkins at left tackle. I mean, experience wise, it's just not there. So he's got a little bit of a ladder to climb. Again with Castillo, if he's the type of dude that says I'm gonna go ahead and work some magic. And turns these guys into something awesome. I hope for the record that Castillo proves both of us dead freaking wrong, over the course of the next year or two. Because I mean, we need offensive linemen, we need nasty ones at that. And at least Tevin Jenkins can provide that. I just don't know about Larry. I just don't see that there.
Yeah, for me, he's a depth guy. He's a guy who's gonna, if he makes a team, it's gonna be a guy. It's probably gonna be, not another one. He's not going to be dressed every Sunday or anything like that. It's going to be guys going to provide depth, and because like I said, the interior of the offensive line is where I see him probably playing his best at. It's got a lot of depth there, so I think he's going to have to kind of wait his turn there.
Well, and Ryan Pace said at the press conference on Saturday that he's the type of guy who is just beginning to ascend and just showing signs that he can be a better player. And so that's why I don't think, he's going to be rushed at all. I think he is a project with all the depth that they have at the interior of the offensive line. He's somebody who, like Neil said, won't get significant snaps, I think, till 2022. So let's hope he progresses nicely. And let's go on to Khalil Herbert, the running back who drafted in round number 6. Neil, your thoughts on him?
Khalil, I had a little bit further on down my running back board when we talked about running backs way back when. He was a guy that obviously the grad transfer from Kansas almost matched his career's worth of Kansas stats with 1 year at Virginia Tech. He's got kickoff return experience. The kid can't block, and he isn't used in the passing game, so that's hard to evaluate. But what he can do is carry the rock. He can exercise patience. He can find holes. He can get the ball up the field. He shows very good vision and awareness. He's instinctive and savvy in how he sets up defenders. Not a twitched up guy. Not a ton of make you miss wiggle. His eyes and his sense are his assets. I don't think we're going to see this guy play with a ton of great explosion. You didn't see it in college. I don't think you're going to see it at the next level. In fact, you won't even see him run full speed until he's in the open field with grass ahead. He's a guy that plays, within himself, within his zone. He's a patient runner. He allows things to get set up ahead of him. He's not necessarily a guy that creates his plays, if that makes sense. He's a crafty guy with some average traits, really, honestly. When you look at him physically, and you look at what he did on pro day, it's very middle of the pack, run of the mill. But he's a guy that's going to come in as a backup. He'll be inserted as a specs guy, especially with the return experience. I think he and Daz Newsome are really kind of in the same boat as far as that goes. I think they're sort of they're average guys that are brought in really because of their special teams experience. Daz with the punt return ability, Khalil with the kick return experience. Daz, specifically, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about these guys together because I think they're sort of like in the same boat to me. With Daz, I think it's in a very similar sort of way. He's brought in to be a specialist, so to speak. He was a guy that was a big time playmaker, just like Khalil was. He was a big time playmaker at North Carolina, special teams guy, put up a bunch of stats. He had some versatility in terms of where he played at North Carolina, played slot, played outside, ran a variety of routes, very deliberate in the way that he sticks his foot in the ground and runs his routes, very competitive. And the thing I love about him specifically on that note is the fact that he was one of the few playmakers on North Carolina's offense that went ahead and decided to go ahead and play the bowl game because he just wants to play football. And I love that about guys, the competitiveness, the 1-2 to be better and to compete. The thing I get about him though is that Khalil and Daz the same way, super hard workers. The work ethic report on these guys was off the charts. In fact, like Daz was one of those guys that I got towards the end of the season. The quote on him was that he's gonna be a tough guy to cut. It's because of the work ethic he brings in, the ass kicking mentality that he brings in. It's going to be really hard to not keep this guy on the roster. The intangibles are there. I think both these guys bring a lot of the same things. They're going to be special teams guys. They're going to be hard workers. They bring that element of competitive toughness to the locker room. Very solid picks, over there in the 6th round for the Bears, I think.
Well, I mean, for me, I love all 3 6th-round picks, and I don't think Daz has to worry about being cut because I think all 3 of these guys are making the team, and I think I have a higher grade on Khalil Herbert. It sounds like than you did, but he's a guy that when I put his tape on, I love the kid. I almost made him put him in my top 10 in terms of the running backs, but it just kind of missed the list. But I wish I did. But compact frame, well proportioned, quick feet. Plays with a low center of gravity. He's got that burst and acceleration through the line of scrimmage. Yeah, the only knock on him really, he hasn't really used that much in a passing game. So that's something that we don't know. I think for his career, he only got like 10 receptions, or I think only had 10 receptions last year with Virginia Tech. So not really used that much in a passing game. So that's the only one thing that's the knock if you want to put on him. But in terms of vision, ability to jump in and out of holes, be able to hit the home run. He's got 4.49 speed. So this is a guy to me, like I said, right now he's probably the second or third best running back on his, depending on Damian Williams coming off that op year. So he's got big time potential, and for me, he makes Tariq Cohen either a slot receiver or very expendable. If I don't see Tariq Cohen play again on the Bears, I'm okay with it because I love this kid, Khalil Herbert, and I also like Damian Williams as well in terms of a veteran presence behind Montgomery. Daz Newsome for me was a guy. One of the guys that I targeted in terms of late day 3. Actually, I had him in the early day 3, like 4th round, 5th round. One of these guys that I've been talking about, getting electric playmakers on offense. And he's a guy, you can just get the ball to him in the open field. He's got the ability to go ahead and shake and juke guys in the open field and make big plays. He's a guy that I see him lining up in the slot most likely and taking advantage of those mismatches. Again, get him on those quick hitters, get him on the hitches, get him on the slip screens, the bubble screens, whatever. Just get the ball in his hands. And of course, both guys, like you said, are going to help him on special teams. Cordell Patterson's no longer on the roster. Herbert's going to help you on one kickoff return. Daz Newsome can help you on punt returns. So these are guys that I think are, like I said, all going to make the team, and I think all going to contribute right away. I'm really excited to see how they utilize Daz Newsome in this offense, going forward.
Yeah, Daz is interesting. I had him exactly where he got picked. I had Khalil exactly where he got picked. 6th round, projections, and obviously for the wide receivers board, that means he was pretty far down the board. I think he was a top 30 guy. Khalil, looking at my list, he was a top 20 guy. So, well, actually, no, he was a top 15 guys. What he was being a 6th round guy.
Is when you watch that North Carolina offense, Brown got all the highlights because he was one of those goal routes on the sidelines, but Daz is the one going across the middle, making all the tough plays. You saw some of those highlights there. His contact balance, be able to bounce off of defenders and continue upfield and get some make some plays after contact. Brown got all the highlight clips, but Daz was the heart and soul of that receiving core.
Yeah, and I love the variety of routes that he ran. He ran, flats and screens. He went over the middle, running ins and posts deep. He runs, sidelines deep. He ran I mean, the bevy of things that they asked him to do in North Carolina. And again, I touched on how he lined up in the slot. He lined up as an outside receiver. He has that experience of versatility that he brings to the locker room as well. So, I mean, in terms of getting a kid like that late, in the 6th round, the numbers that he put at pro day aren't necessarily wow numbers, but what he puts on film is stuff that makes you smile 100%.
Right.
All right, we got a big debate coming now because Danny is not real high on Tonga, the 7th round draft pick, but Neil, I think you had him on your top 10, was it? Or you gave him an honorable mention when we were talking interior defensive linemen. So let's start with your assessment on Tonga, Neil.
Yeah, I had Khyiris Tonga as a mid-late day 3 guy, right? 5th, 6th round guy. And what you get out of him in terms of positives is that he does have a powerful get off. He plays forward with strength, pad level, leverage. He's a bull rush player, though. He doesn't have a repertoire of moves and skills and things of that nature up front. He is a bull rusher. He's just a big body dude at 6'4", 321. He's got nimble feet in the open field, especially for his size. Shows the ability to collapse the pocket. I think the biggest thing, and Danny's probably gonna echo this. The biggest thing is his consistency in all the positives that you see. He shows the ability to collapse the pocket. He establishes position, continues to drive his feet. He shows the ability to be a large, powerful machine, but when he gets position, right? These are all good things, very inconsistent with the positives. When he doesn't get that early position, he also shows consistency of playing high. He gets washed out. He loses the play. I talked about the lack of variety of pass rush moves, in terms of productivity, 2.5 sacks in 2020, 2.5 TFLs, modest, at best. As of right now, he's really only a run stuffing space eater type of dude. For his size, he ends up getting knocked down way too often for my liking. But big man with incredible upside. He needs to be put in a situation where he could be coached up, he could be molded, extract all the great out of him, make all these positives, consistencies, right? Getting him to be consistent beast in the middle is going to be the key to him. And, I know that, in terms of guys in the middle, on the defensive side of the ball, the travel squad depth, the nose tackle position wasn't exactly something that they kept multiple of, but maybe that'll change if they get another space eating type, on the roster. I think, what they did with their depth chart, previously was that they had guys that were able to be athletic and make plays in the backfield and didn't really have another functional body back there behind nose tackle to carry more than one. I think, Khyiris Tonga could be the difference there. Obviously with a 7th round pick on a guy like this, that's easy take, in my opinion. A guy that big, a guy that nimble, you just got to coach him up. You got to extract, like I said, the best out of him to turn all these positives into consistencies. A large, big ass body type. You look at his lowers. He's thick. He runs his feet on contact. He gets extension with his arms. But again, run stuffer. You're not going to get a dynamic pass rushing presence out of him. So that's where I'm at on him. I think that was an awesome 7th pick. Obviously, I'm very high on the guy, so my opinion is biased. But, I think he's a guy that's going to make the roster, and, he's got some promise, moving forward.
For me, with Tonga, and I understand why they picked him, because I've been here banging on the table to get a backup nose tackle to cover up for Eddie Goldman, at least back him up. And I know why they picked him. My only thing was and I know he's a two down player, right? He's a guy that's going to be able to 2-gap block, occupy blockers, let the linebackers free roam to let them go and eat some tackles. But like you said, the inconsistencies in the game just drive me crazy. The first game I put on was he's up against a Naval Academy and he's getting uprooted and being pushed 6-7 yards down the field. Here it does highlight here for San Diego State. One guy is just driving him 6-7 yards down the field. And again, talking about leverage, he gets high in the stance and loses all his power and then gets pushed back and gets bullied out of there. So there are times where, like I said, he 2-gaps, stacks, he sheds, and he makes a play, but there's times where he just gets bullied up. For a guy for 325 pounds, who's supposed to be a two down run stuffer. He gets, blown off the ball way too many times for my liking. And I just feel like at that point, there was a kid like Marvin Wilson from Florida State was still on the board. Actually, he went undrafted, and I wonder why he wasn't drafted at that position. He's a kid that gives you a little bit more athletic wise, a guy that gives you also some ability to stop the run and also gives you something upfield in terms of pass rusher. Like I said, this guy gives you nothing in terms of pass rush. Maybe he'll jolt the center, kind of rock him on his heels, and then walk him back into the backfield and bull rush him. But since then, I've found out that there are some off the field stuff with Marvin Wilson. That's why he went undrafted. Now, I know Cleveland gave him $162,000 signing bonus guaranteed to bring him into camp as a free agent. So he's probably going to make that team is my guess. But that's the reason why they kind of stayed away from him. Wilson, that is. I think there was some off the field stuff, but we're not gonna get into that here. But anyway, with Tonga, the short arms as well. He's got 31-inch arms. You see right there. There's a play right there where the running back just right by him, and his arms. He reached out. You couldn't bring him down. You couldn't even alter the kid's running path or anything like that. So, I have a lot of question marks with him in terms of is he going to be someone that's going to make the roster? I know why they picked him. I just don't think this is the right guy to kind of bring. Plus, with the side, you're going to go with the Vic Fangio style, which you don't. Vic Fangio doesn't take two gapping defensive linemen. Yeah, there's times we ask you to two gap, but most of the time he wants guys that can get upfield so he can bring some of that pass rush. But this guy doesn't give you anything like that. So that's why it was a questionable pick for me. But I think 7 picks. I think this is the only pick that I really don't see making the roster. Obviously, everyone else I think is going to make the roster and contribute.
I think one of the things that Neil said earlier about the 6th-round draft picks, and that that they were probably targeted for special teams work. Kairos Tonga was an excellent special teams player. Had a number of blocked kicks and punts and so forth, and so perhaps they were looking at that, very deeply with him and figuring, we can develop him into being a suitable backup nose tackle. But right now he could potentially pay immediate dividends on special teams if he makes the roster. So that's something to consider. Guys, it is time to talk about undrafted free agents. And Danny, I'm going to go with you first. You have been really, really high on one particular guy.
Hey, Aldo, real quick, we didn't talk about Thomas Graham.
No, we didn't. How did that happen?
About Thomas Graham.
I'm so sorry, Thomas. If you're listening, I got a feeling you pulled away from Twitch to watch the show. Please, Neil, lead the way with talking about Graham.
No, Thomas Graham is a guy that I came away from Senior Bowl extremely high on. He was a dude that I remember talking about watching the practices where that wide receiver DB one-on-one drill, the read and react drill, where essentially one move, read the receiver, plant your foot, spike to the ball, and do it as quickly and explosively as possible. And he and Taylor from Washington were the guys that really stood out. And I think he had a really good week on the whole at the Senior Bowl. He followed that up with a very solid pro day as well. 5'10 and a half, 193, 31-inch arms, ran a 4.45, 10-1 broad. And did a decently solid 13 reps on the bench. I think that one of the reasons why this kid went as late as he did was because he opted out in 2020. And a lot of these teams, unless you were a special talent, you probably were going a little bit later than you should have otherwise, just because you didn't show up to play this past fall. But I think you go back to what this kid did in 2019. I mean, he was highly productive, really throughout the course of his entire career. Highly productive, started 39 games out of 40 in 3 years. He may not have been the elite physical measurables like type guy, but the athletic measurables to me certainly above average and stood out. I love his hip fluidity, the reactionary athleticism. He's got hips on a swivel and enough explosion and a sense of urgency to really pop out of transition and attack the ball. He also attractive is his competitiveness and willingness to be physical as both a tackler and impress. He plays with a ton of juice and energy. Doesn't have the ideal measurables, albeit, but he's a good player. He's going to have a role. I can see him possibly being a guy that comes in and plays nickel immediately and is serviceable and nails down that position. Kind of the same way I was talking about Aaron Robinson, a guy that can come in and lock down a position that has been really fluid, over the course of the past couple of years. I like this kid a lot. He'd be groomed into being the outside guy when Desmond Trufant hangs it up. Really amped up about that pick. I had him, going higher than where he eventually got picked. I had him as early day 3 guy.
All right, Graham. Again, like the other two guys, I think the Bears got great value for these players where they picked them out in the 6th round. All three of them. I love all three of these picks. But like for the people who missed my report on Sunday, again, this guy's a highly recruited kid out of high school, 4-star recruit, originally committed to USC before flipping over to Oregon. A 3-year starter. He's got 39 games started, as a freshman. He left Oregon having started 39 consecutive games, so he's durable. The other thing, Neil, I don't think you mentioned it, but the kid's a ball hawk. He's got 40 passes defensed, 8 interceptions. He led the Pac-12 in 2018 with 21 passes defense. So this kid's all around the ball. And his ability to get downfield, stay in the hip of a receiver on those vertical routes. We talked about his 4.48 speed. So this guy has the ability to be a playmaker. And I think, my only concern, well, obviously it lacks the ideal height, 5'10". It's okay. It's not great. It's not bad either. But there's times when he's beating off the snap with suddenness and speed. His recovery speed kind of worries me. And sometimes he gets a little out of phase and it's hard for him to get back in phase. That's the only really concern I had about him. But again, I think you're right, Neil. I think this guy opted out last year and he's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. Actually, when he popped up on the screen at the 6th round, I'm like, oh my God, that's right. Thomas Graham hasn't been drafted yet. And I absolutely love this pick. I think this guy's going to come in and compete for that slot corner spot. We see here the way he transitions quickly out of his back pedal, and he comes in, he drops, he jumps routes. We saw that Auburn pick right there. Terrific, quickness in this transition. Again, a kid's a ball hawk, just makes plays on the football. Is always around the ball. I love corners like that. So again, a guy's going to come in and I think can compete right away for your corner position.
100%. I love the first time that he stepped on the field as a true freshman. The first, I think it was, I can't remember who it was against. It's been a while since I watched this film now, but the first time he stepped on a field, I think he picked off like 1 or 2 passes and had 2 or 3 PBUs in his first game as a collegiate ball player. So, I mean, you love the dog in him, the ball hawk in him, and like a true measure of how athletic and explosive some of these DBs are is the level of flash they have across the screen when they're making plays, right? If this guy comes in like a bat out of hell making plays, that tells you something. That tells you, number one, he triggers quick. Yeah, right. Yeah, go back to that Auburn play where he just seemingly came out of nowhere and snatched that pick. And he triggers quick. He's explosive. He sees it. I'm a massive fan of Thomas Graham, and I was talking about him Senior Bowl week. I was so amped up when I saw that pick come over the notifications on my phone when I was with family on over the weekend on Saturday. Man, amped up.
Yeah, and he's tough and competitive. So in a slot corner, you want a guy that's going to be able to make tackles, right? Because you're closer to the action, to a line of scrimmage. You're going to be tough and everything, and not back away from guys. So he's got that as well. So again, the only thing, and I'm being a little nitpicky here, is just that recovery speed. When he gets out of phase, I just want to see him get back in phase real, quicker than I have seen him before. But we'll see how that develops. But again, I think is a great value pick here in the 6th round. All 3 of these guys.
Absolutely.
Dane Brugler had him targeted as a 4th round pick, and his overall summary says overall Graham doesn't have high end physical traits, but he works hard to stay on top of his routes and makes plays on the football. He projects as an immediate depth piece for an NFL team. And who knows, maybe he could be the starting cornerback for the Chicago Bears.
Slowly, with Kindle Vildor, with this kid, the Bears are building, and Dalen Johnson last year in the 2nd round, the Bears are building some solid cornerback depth. Obviously these guys have to play on Sundays and show potential. But I'm a big fan of Vildor. I'm a big fan of this kid. Obviously Johnson, and then we'll see how Desmond Trufant does it in terms of the veteran there. But they're bringing some guys in here that I like. I like their twitchiness. I like their ability to make plays. And I love whenever you say a ball hawking defensive back, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Artie plays outside. Am I correct?
Yes. Artie Burns plays outside. Yep.
All right. So good luck to Artie Burns. He's been fighting injuries. Got off to a 1st round pick, and unfortunately things didn't go well for him with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hopefully he can turn it around here in Chicago. That would ease my concerns a lot, because I'm really worried about these defensive backs. All right, let us get to these undrafted free agents. There's a number of guys to talk about, but in particular, there's a few that really look like they could be special signings. So let us start. Danny, there's one in particular that you've been keeping your eye on, and Greg Gabriel Gabriel talked about him too. Caleb Johnson out of Houston Baptist. Gabriel said that when he talked to a couple of scouts, they said, holy cow, you guys got a special player in Caleb Johnson. Go ahead.
Right. And that's so my biggest thing when going into when I got the undrafted free agent list, I'm like, oh, Charles Snowden, that's a guy I like a lot. And I put, I did a scouting report. I think this guy obviously coming off a broken ankle, Snowden has a chance to make this roster. Then I started going through the guys one by one. And when I got to Caleb Johnson, I'm like, holy cow, how is this kid not drafted? Right. First of all, 3-year starter, 3 straight years he was named to the Southland Conference Academic Honor Roll. So he's got a head on his shoulders. He's a smart kid as well.
A lot of Texas Tech's wideouts are big physical guys.
Sorry, go ahead.
So this kid's been a tackling machine. He's got 255 tackles in his last 3 seasons alone, with 26 tackles for loss and 9 sacks. Right. So this is a guy that's all over the field. You put on his tape, you see, he's a good athlete, strong core, explosive lower body. This guy ran a 4.73 40, 1.64 10-yard split, 6.89 3-cone, which tells you some of that change of direction ability, a 38-inch vertical, 10-1 on the broad jump, and rep 19 on the bench. Quick feet and lateral agility, possessing that sideline and sideline speed we talked about. Quick to trigger, diagnoses, locates post snap, good eyes and instincts. A very instinctive linebacker. Takes good angles to the football and is aggressive filling on his run fits. Highly competitive and plays with a high motor. You watch this kid play. The guy pursues all over the field, guys. Physical at the point of contact. Forceful striker who does not mind popping pads. Possesses, chase down, pursuit speed, and will chase all over the field like we talked about. Very good body control. Coming into balance in the open field and securing tackles. So he's a sure open field tackler. Times up his blitz very nicely, and I kind of reminiscent of Roquan when he was coming in, and the way he times his blitz up very nicely, using that speed and closing burst to chase down quarterbacks. It looks like he's shot out of a cannon when he's blitzing. Has special teams experience, so he's probably going to make the team on special teams in terms of coverage units. But man, this guy, to me, I'm surprised he went undrafted. Some of the things negatives I put on him, again, short arms. He only has 31.25-inch arms. Lacks coverage reps. You don't see him dropping back in coverage a lot. That's why you don't see him making many plays on the ball. I think he only has 3 career pass defense and just 1 career interception. But this is a guy that for me, when you put on his tape, is instinctive and he's fast. And I think he triggers quickly. And I think this guy's going to make the team easily, in my opinion.
Yeah, this kid was a lot of fun to watch, man. And there was probably 3 guys on this list that I had, a fun time. I couldn't turn off the tape, and obviously he's one of them. I think one of the central themes that you're going to get off of all these guys that we talk about in terms of the UDFAs is that you got guys with intangibles. Obviously, they're not guys that are going to come in and be impact players right away. In terms of undrafted free agents, they're essentially the walk-ons of your program, right? And right. If you want to put it in a college sense of things, you look for guys, and this is what Pace did. As I went through all these guys, I researched their stories, and I watched their film, and I did all the research. In terms of like what Pace did with these UDFAs, he got guys with literally checking the boxes on all the intangibles: toughness, leadership, whether that be as either team captain or leadership council guys, guys with character, guys with work ethic, high levels of work ethic, mental capacity, intelligence from a football standpoint, blue collar guys, and guys have suffered adversity in a couple of cases. What that means is that when you bring these guys in your program, not only are you going to get a guy that's going to work his ass off regardless of his role, but you're getting guys that bring value, right? Guys that can process, guys that are blue collar, guys that don't care about spotlights, guys that just, that are tough and physical and play the game the right way. I mean, the intangibles on all these guys are outstanding and off the charts. With Caleb, you got a guy that has a toughness, that has character, that has work ethic, and you see on tape, like the kid plays a really physical brand of football. One of the quotes I saw on this kid was "tackle machine," right? And that's essentially what he is. He's a guy that's physical as hell when he hits you. He'll be a hell of a box player for the Bears if he ends up elevating himself to the point to where he becomes a contributor on the defensive side of the ball. I love how good he is at supporting the run. He finds gaps and shoots through. The competitiveness with the offensive lineman and fighting off blocks is something that you don't always get, even with some of these guys that actually do get drafted. I wasn't as hyped up on his speed as you were, Danny, but I mean, he's got explosive tendencies, and he plays with a high motor, and he pursues downfield and sideline to sideline. Although he can't always hit the edge, make the play, but I mean, just the brand of football that he plays is exciting. if you watch that Texas Tech game, he does show some cover skills a little bit. Even though he doesn't get tested, he doesn't, make a play. He's able to run with guys, and so, I'm positive on that aspect of his game. So, just as like the first guy we're talking about, we're going to talk about a couple other guys, especially on my end that I was, one of which I was even higher on than Caleb Johnson. But, a lot of these guys possess a lot of these different traits that you don't always get with guys that you actually take in the draft. And I think a lot of these guys, at least half of us, will probably make the roster.
So the thing for me, when I'm watching guys from lower level competition, he's playing at Houston Baptist, which I don't even know that football program, to be honest with you. But I want these guys to pop, right? And this guy popped on. I mean, he's making plays left and right, and it's like who's number 9? And that's the guy I'm looking at. Number 9 is Caleb Johnson. So for me, like I said, he's got good range in terms of sideline to sideline. So I think he's a guy that could make plays all over the field for me, and from what I saw on his tape as well. So. Definitely surprised. At first I'm like, oh, is he small? No, he's 6'3", 226, which is not bad, for a middle linebacker, especially. So, I'm really, really surprised. Of course, the level of competition is going to be a big, huge jump up. So I'm not saying he's going to come in and compete for a starting position next year, but definitely see him making the roster on special teams, challenging guys for the backup spot. And then that's from there, now you got to coach him up.
He is apparently a good student too, a marketing major, a member of the American Marketing Association, student athlete advisory committee. So he stayed busy with off the field activities that were positive. He says that he was under recruited at high school, but got an opportunity to go to Houston Baptist. And he was asked, what is your best quality? And he said, easily my leadership. I understand the nuances of different people, how to talk to them, push them. And I realize that most things can be done by example. So in turn, it pushes me to further be that example in a way that makes me better. I make my teammates better. He was asked who was the best college player he ever went against. And he said it was against Aaron Jones when they played UTEP a year.
Running back from the Packers. Yeah. Like I said, 3 straight years he was academic all honor roll. So he's kid's he looks smart as well. So I mean, like I said, off the field checks all the marks in terms of character and all that stuff. So definitely I'm very intrigued in watching in the preseason.
Quick question here from Jeremy. He says, did we miss out on wide receivers Terry and Chad as undrafted free agents?
Yeah, they both signed with Seattle.
Yeah, that's too bad because those guys really caught our eyes. All right.
I think I meant Cade Johnson, right? You said Chad. I think I meant Cade Johnson.
Cade,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's go on undrafted free agents. I think the other big name that everybody is talking about is the kid from Virginia, Charles Snowden, who when I looked at his highlight reel, I said, that guy looks like Leonard Floyd. Tall, about 6'6", 6'7", long-limbed guy, linebacker. What do you guys think about Snowden?
Yeah, for me, I went over him on Sunday, but I'll go over it again. Basically, this kid, like you said, looks like Leonard Floyd, big body, 6'6", 243, 35-inch arms. He's got the huge, wingspan. 30 and a half tackles for loss for his career, 15 sacks, 18 passes defensed. Was a linebacker and receiver in high school. Also played basketball. Actually, basketball was his first love, and he was actually looking for a scholarship to go to school on basketball, but ended up switching over to football. 2020 team captain. Again, touched on the high character guys. Second team All ACC. What the size and arm length to me, it's tremendous, especially for an edge player. Good movement skills. Moves like a basketball player really out there. Can flow laterally. He also has that plan and drive on a football type of ability. Long strider. Helps him make up ground in a hurry. Plays on his feet with good balance. Considering the fact that he's a long-limbed athlete. Consistently productive against the run. Shows the ability to go ahead and slip blocks and get skinny to pierce through and use his long arms to corral ball carriers. Again, 30 and a half tackles for loss in his career. Shows the ability and a willingness to set the hard edge, to follow the play action back inside, uses his length to press, stack, and shed tight ends at the point of attack, to get to the ball carrier. So, you mentioned Leonard Floyd. To me, Leonard Floyd became a better run defender once he got to the Bears. He wasn't that good of a run defender at Georgia. This kid comes as a good run defender already, in my opinion. Quick to trigger out of his drop when he's in coverage, can fire downhill, come up and tackle running back in a flat. Another one that's going to pursue all over the field and is a solid player in space. For me, he gives you a little bit of edge. That's why I see him as an edge rusher, outside linebacker. Gives you that quick first step quickness to get outside the shoulder of the offensive tackle. displays the ability to bend and dip his shoulders underneath the tackle and flatten to the quarterback. So this is a guy that I think gives you some of that outside edge stuff that you're going to have to, I mean, you don't have to coach it up, but right now he's got the ability, that quick first step and that length to be able to, make his presence felt on the outside. Another guy that's got special teams experience. This guy's blocked kicks, blocked punts in college as well. So, some of the negatives, obviously he broke his ankle second to last game of the season. And so what's going to happen now is he's recovering. So he couldn't do many of the tests or anything like that. So he's a guy that we'll see how long that takes, whether he's going to be ready for training camp. We're not sure yet, but definitely, slim frames, got to add bulks, got to get stronger to, compete better at the point of attack at the NFL level. There's times he gets stuck on blocks, but there's things he can coach up, right? Just to get this kind of raw athlete talent as an undrafted free agent really surprised me.
Yeah, you said it right there. That's the key with him. He's got to get coached up. He's got all the athletic, traits, the physical traits, superb length. The build is slight. You got to pack a lot of pounds on this kid. Measuring at 232 during pro day, which I actually thought that was excellent for what I thought he was going to weigh in at.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like he's 215, 220. To that end, he does struggle disengaging with offensive linemen a lot of times. Right. Lacks elite pass rush tools and power. When I was watching the initial games, the edge rushers were the first. There's a second position group we did after quarterbacks, I believe. So we didn't have a whole lot of games on him when we did that position group. So the first couple of games I watched, I remember thinking, man, like I really question his effectiveness. Like this kid is so tiny, in his hips and he's slight and he's not strong yet. I felt he needed to play longer, going back to my original evaluation. I mean, when it comes down to it, you're taking a kid. I'm thinking about this kid in terms of him being a draft pick. We get this kid for free, basically, right? Yeah. We get this kid for free. And you get a long, agile, athletic dude that was productive as a pass rusher, albeit with primitive skills. But I mean, in terms of things you got to coach up on a kid as raw as that, you'll take it, right? I mean, we're talking about guys with intangibles, with primitive traits. In terms of coverage, I think he could be really effective in the boundary if you want to go ahead and use him. In short space. This is a really intriguing pick, guys. Pickup, guys. He's a guy that did remind me of Leonard Floyd when I was originally watching him. But again, we're getting him for free essentially. So hell of a pickup. Let's see what they can turn him into.
Yeah, definitely. We're kind of projecting in terms of him filling out his body. Obviously getting stronger at the point of attack. We talked about getting stuck on blocks. He's got to get better using his length to be able to to shed and slip those blocks and get free. But I mean when he's left out there to roam, in terms of the in the open field, he's a guy comes to gather himself and able to secure tackles. So. A lot of positives for me with this kid. And again, another one that I was just surprised I wasn't drafted. Again, the ankle injury and with the whole thing, with not having a combine, I'm not sure if that was, a big culprit in terms of why he was undrafted. That could have been. I mean, again, he didn't test at
crushed
all
a lot of guys
at the pro day. All he did was he just got measured and he got, I think he did the bench press, but that's about it. So that could have been, that could have been an issue there. But again, definitely a prospect that I'm really intrigued by. Hopefully we'll see how healthy he is with that ankle and hopefully he can participate. But even if he's not, maybe you can put him on, injury reserve for a season and kind of redshirt him if you will, and just kind of hide him there. But yeah, I mean, the kid's talented in my opinion, and to get him as an undrafted free agent, I think that's a nice pickup there too.
Guys, who else do you like among the undrafted free agent class?
My favorite guy, honestly, the guy that I legitimately could not turn the film off of was Sam Kamara from Stony Brook, yeah. Sam Kamara from Stony Brook, man, that kid was a lot of fun. He's a little bit undersized, right?
Right.
They had him.
To me, he's a 3 technique. That's the thing.
Right. They had him at 6'2", 275, which I think was a little bit generous on the 6'2".
He's 6'1", 275.
6'1", 275. Yeah. But again, another kid with intangibles. He's a team captain. You listen to this kid talk. He's extremely eloquent and articulate. He started the first 5 games of 2019 before a season-ending injury. Over the course of his career, 36 starts, 110 tackles, 24 for loss, 15 sacks. Undersized yet high energy, high motor, active, quick twitch, physical dude. He's super sudden in his first step.
Right.
He has upper body power. He can bully around offensive linemen, albeit at the FCS level, the CAA conference. He still bullies guys around. He plays in pursuit. He makes plays on the perimeter. He can bend the edge. Uses the bull rush really well. He also uses his hands and arms well to create extension, swim, shed. He also plays the edge. So in terms of a guy that comes in with versatility in terms of where he's played, you got a guy here that has played the edge as a rusher. Even though a lot of times he would bend it inside, but also a guy that plays in the gaps, plays inside as a 3, as a shade, as a 4. He's a really, really interesting player. You see him just accelerating off the ball, throwing that guy down. Right here, being physical with the guard there and bringing down the quarterback. There's plays of him where that explosive first step will show, and he just legitimately just beats guys off the ball just with the first step itself. I was really amped up about this pick, guys. I mean, as a kid that I knew nothing about before just a couple days ago. This is a guy that number 1 is going to make the roster. Number 2, I won't be surprised if he finds himself like a significant role.
Well, the thing is, guys, because all the things you said about him, I agree. I have here sudden, off the snap, upfield, gap penetrator. It looks more like a 3 technique than a nose tackle. Converts speed to power, strong hands, knockback power. Carries his weight and pads well. Discards blockers and flows down line of scrimmage. Makes multiple tackles on down the line of scrimmage. Can swim move into the gap, cross the blocker's face. Quick hands, quick twitch. But 6'1", 275, that's the thing is I don't see the scheme fit here. Trust me, and if this is like a Lovie Smith defense, I can see him at a 3 technique all day. But the thing is he's too small to play nose tackle. He's not big enough to play 5 technique. So that's my only concern is what's their game plan with this kid? If he ends up coming in and wreaking havoc like we're seeing on tape, where do you play him? So that's the thing. It's I'm kind of torn here. But I like this kid more. I like Tonga. And Tonga is supposed to be a 2-gapping run stuffer, and I think this kid is probably a better overall player than him. So, if this kid, do you put on 10 to 20 pounds on him? Does it slow down his suddenness at the line of scrimmage, make him 295, and make him a backup nose tackle? But I agree with you. Everything about him is eye popping, eye catching, if you want, on tape, but. It's just I didn't see that fit, and I'm curious to see how he's going to play. What position they have him listed at on the depth chart? Is he a nose tackle? Is he a 5 technique? I'm assuming he's going to be a nose tackle. I don't think they're going to put him on a 5 technique, but we'll see how it goes. But upfield guys, getting that gap penetrations off the snap. He's so quick, twitchy, if you will, for a guy who's 275. But yeah, you're right. His tape really just another guy that's just like Caleb Johnson for me, just kind of popped. When I'm watching lower level guys, I want to see them pop. I want to, I got a little confused because there was a game I was watching. He was 75. There was another game he changed to 5, and I didn't know that. And I was like, wait, who's this guy? Who's number 5? I'm looking for 75. I'm like, who's number 5? And then he ended up changing his number to 5 later on in his career. So I was like, oh, it got me a little confused there. But yeah, I mean that's the thing is these guys pop on tape, these small school guys, and that's how you got a ball player there.
I wouldn't be surprised if they go ahead and trim him up actually and try to use him on the edge. I don't know. I didn't get all of his length measurements. I don't know how long his arms are. I don't know how big his hands are, what his wingspan is, or anything like that. I couldn't find all of his pro day stuff. But I mean, as quick and explosive as this kid is, I'm just saying it's a possibility. We don't know exactly where they're planning on using this kid.
They took Roy Robertson Harrison, who was an outside linebacker at UTEP, and made him a 5 technique and got him bigger and stronger. So maybe they put this kid under the same kind of program and bulk him up and get him stronger at the point of attack. Just because he's not 300 pounds doesn't mean he's not going to be strong at the point of attack. So that's the other thing is as long as he's there, he can fulfill his run, his run fits, and he's strong there. He doesn't get run over and bullied at the point of contact, the line of scrimmage. And he provides that quickness, that upfield rush. There you go.
I mean, he's just one of those guys that makes defensive coordinators go projects. That's a very intriguing project.
Did you guys get a chance to look at any tape from the tight end from Stanford? We're being asked about him. What's his name?
Scooter Harrington.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, Scooter Harrington. He's another one of these guys that comes in with some really intriguing physical intangibles, physical traits. Big size at just under 6'5", 256 pounds. Big hands at 10 inches. Big arms at 34 3/4. big wingspan of 82.5. So I mean, you're automatically looking at a guy with size, with length, with a physical presence, right? And again, on the central theme of the topic, a guy with incredible off the field intangibles as well. He was an honor roll kid, National Honor Society type guy, and of course he's from Stanford, so he can process mentally. Started 4 out of 6 games in this past season in 2020. Only 1 start in 2019. He was basically a rotational guy at tight end. Right. They had him playing at flex and at H-back. Not a whole lot of production this past year. 8 catches, 58 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not exceptional athletic ability, but he's got the physical traits. He can catch the ball. My guess with him is that they're bringing in this guy for special teams as well. A guy that I think I saw on film him playing PAT field goal and PAT field goal block. But PAT field goal, you see him as a wing or a rocker, and a guy with that kind of length and ability to catch the football, to where if you want to go ahead and get crazy and draw up some trick plays out of PAT field goal, he could be a guy that you'll never expect to be a part of that. He wasn't a highly productive guy, but has some traits. He's not going to excite you on film, but these are all undrafted free agents after all.
Right. And when I first before I put a film on it, when I saw his measurables, I thought, initially I thought Stanford tight end. I'm like, this guy's probably an inline wide blocker. Then I saw his measurables, and
exactly
I saw
my thought too.
Like this guy's a move tight end. I'm like, I don't see it. And like I said, he's not really twitchy or explosive downfield. Very limited production. So I'm just at this point right now, I'd probably a camp body and see what he could do in terms of what he can produce and all that stuff. But right now, I don't have high expectations for this kid.
Right.
What about McLean, the wide receiver? We're being asked about him. 6'4".
Yeah.
Is that the guy that came in later? I know they signed one guy after I had made my list, and I think that might have been the kid, the McLean kid.
Yeah. Khalil McLean from Troy, 6'3", 217 at Pro Day. His measurables, he had 9.5 ace arms, 31 or 9.5 ace hands, 31 arms, 76 and an eighth wingspan. Reportedly ran a 4.56 40. I'm not sure I see that on tape. Modest production this past year, 383 yards, 6 touchdowns. He was a kid I remember watching in high school from Fairburn, Georgia, Creekside High School, a very good program right outside of Atlanta. He went to Tulane originally to play quarterback. In high school, he was one of those dudes where he was just the best athlete on the field. Long, tall, athletic, physical. The guy that plays the quarterback position, you let him run around and throw a few passes here and there. Didn't work out at Tulane, even though he played as a freshman. Ended up at Hutchinson Community College. Played. That's where I think he made a switch to wide receiver, and then went to Troy and played there for 2 years. I mean, obviously decent size. He's got arm length and hands. He wasn't necessarily one of these guys that jumped off the film, so to speak. He was more or less a guy that you probably peg him at, if anything, in the Bears offense at Z. A guy that you'd rely on to take the top off the defense a little bit, or give a physical presence in the red zone. Just outman smaller DBs. Another guy that's probably a camp body, probably a practice squad guy that'll have to work his way up to finding himself a role. But with this wide receivers room, thank God they brought in a couple speed demons after the fact, because it was looking pretty thin in terms of guys that could function. You're almost talking about this guy coming in and having a role right away if we'll pick up extra bodies. But I think right now, I mean, he's just a guy, to be honest with you, that isn't worth getting too excited about. If we see him, we see him. I wouldn't expect to see him as a part of the roster, to be honest, though.
Yeah, I'm with you. What about the kid, the running back from
Carolina?
Yeah,
CJ Marble.
Yeah, what do you guys think about him? Because he's got a fantastic highlight reel.
Yeah, I mean that kid. Talk about a guy who's been through some tough times. I mean, signed in 2016 with Arkansas State, but didn't qualify due to his ACT scores. So he sat out of football in 2016. 2017 went to Presbyterian, and then from there he went to Coastal Carolina, where he led the team in rushing for 3 straight seasons. He's a 3-year starter, team captain. Solid athlete with quick feet, solid burst, good straight line speed, control mover with a low center of gravity. Solid burst to get through the line of scrimmage into the defensive second level, good vision, balance, and short area burst. Shifty runner, cuts efficiently, and bounces to the outside. Terrific hands. This guy is one hell of a pass catcher out of the backfield. You see him running routes out of the backfield. So this guy, his calling card is going to be his hands and his ability to catch passes. He had 93 receptions in his career with 14 receiving touchdowns to go along with his 33 rushing touchdowns. So he's a very productive small school player. The one thing for me, obviously, he's undersized, lacks the play strength. He's about 5'7", 195. Remind me a little bit of Garrett Wolf, but a little, 20 pounds heavier than Garrett Wolf. Lacks the elite speed you're looking for in these smaller, diminutive running backs. Adequate contact power. To run through arm tackles. Not a make you miss kind of guy. Not a lot of shake, if you will, in the open field. More of a straight line guy. Might struggle in terms of in between the tackles kind of runner. As a guy who likes bouncing everything to the outside, or mostly everything to the outside. So, and in terms of his lack of size and play strength, is not really effective in terms of a pass blocker. So. Again, with the depth right now, they have the running back. We talked about it a little bit with Chris Emma, with obviously David Montgomery, and then Damian Williams, and then Khalil Herbert, who all of us like. Tariq Cohen, I'm not sure what they're going to do with that, with him, and then this guy I think gives you more depth. But if anything, this guy is probably a candidate to be in the practice squad. He's a very productive player, just undersized and a guy that I think gives you a different dimension. Not the speed demon that I was hoping to have, but you know what? He's very productive, and you put on his tape, you can see him making plays.
I just wonder if they brought in this guy if in the case of Tariq Cohen's injury not healing the way that they wanted it to, because he to me looked like a Tariq Cohen backup plan, a gadget guy, a perimeter guy, a guy you don't want to send up the in between the tackles, but a guy you get on the edge, give him the ball in space, let him do work, which is really what to me they're going to use Tariq Cohen as now. You're not going to see that guy. We never should have. We're not going to see that guy anymore going between the tackles. You're going to see that guy you're going to give him the ball on the perimeter, design some plays around him, some gadget stuff. He might get 5 touches a game. You know what I mean? So I just wonder if he's sort of the backup plan as a gadget dude out of the backfield in case Tariq doesn't heal the way they want him to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the other guy I looked at, I don't know if you had a chance yet, Neil, is this kid from Temple, Daniel Archibald. Not a lot of production, but man, this guy, you put his tape on and he's out there. He makes his presence felt, and 6'5", 295, 32-inch arms, had a 5'3", 340, a 1.8, 10-yard split, 8.163 cone, which tells you his inability in terms of change of direction.
Right.
28 reps on the bench press, but a tight end and defensive end in high school, 4-year starter at Temple, 48 games played, 42 starts, AAC all academic team. Again, another kid who's got a head on his shoulder. And the one thing with Temple players is he was awarded number 6. If you're a Temple player and you're awarded a single digit number, that means you're one of the toughest players on the team. So whenever you see a guy on defense or on Temple's team, with a single digit, those guys are being recognized by the coaching staff as tough players. So when you put on his tape, you look at Archibong, he's very good size. Like I talked about, 6'5", 295, 32-inch arms, with the length. More of a straight line athlete, who's got enough quickness off the snap to get upfield and disrupt plays. Good strength at the point of attack to stack the run in 2-gap. Plays with physicality, competes and runs hard to the football. Strong hands. Has got some jolt power in his hands. Knows how to use them. Has displayed a wide variety of moves on tape. I see him use a swim, a swipe, a rip. To get upfield, get skinny, and pierce through the backfield. Does a nice job of converting speed to power and plays long with his arms and has the ability to bully offensive linemen into the backfield. Not a finisher. A lot of times you see him slipping off tackles. He's almost there for the sack, but he doesn't get there in time. Production again, in career is going out 89 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and 8 passes defense. But whenever you put his tape on, he's always around the ball. He's always making his presence felt. So. Another kid that, to be honest with you, I like this kid's effort and his ability to play as a backup nose tackle. He's probably going to be a 5 technique is my guess, but he's a guy that could probably play better nose tackle than Tunga, in my opinion. I don't mean to rip Tunga, but it's just these guys, him and the Kamara kid, both guys that I prefer to have over Tunga right now in terms of what they give you in terms of run defense, a little bit more consistency, and also especially in terms of getting up the field and piercing that backfield and providing some pass rush.
You're just trying to be a jerk at this point. That's all that is. No, man.
Try.
I think this kid is interesting. Tonga is certainly a hell of a lot more athletic than this kid, and
so?
he could do a lot more things. I think from a lateral standpoint. What I did like about this kid, I wrote down.
Wait, you think Tonga's more athletic than Archibong?
Absolutely.
Oh, no way, dude. No way.
No,
Tonga can't even move.
No, what are you talking about? He can move laterally. I didn't see his kid move laterally.
Yeah, he can move when the guys are moving him backwards. When the offensive linemen are pushing him 7 yards back to the other way, he can move that way. But go ahead. Finish your assessment. Sorry.
Unbelievable. Do you even watch the tape? No.
Of course.
Naval
Academy and San Diego State. I watched.
I want to see you go up against some military guys. Let's see how you fare.
I'm not saying I'm going to be better. I'm getting paid to scout, not get paid to go stop running backs. Go ahead. I digress. I'm turning my mic off.
He's getting paid.
I was about to say, like, who's getting paid here? I'm not getting paid. You're getting paid? Unbelievable. No. So like the fun thing about him was the whole Temple Tough thing. I wrote down the same thing. I saw that blurb too about how he was awarded number 6 during summer of 2019. Temple Tough is a big time hashtag at Temple. I think Jeff Collins brought that there from Florida. Defensive coordinator of Florida, was a defensive coordinator at Mississippi State when I was there for a little bit. Brought that to Temple. That was his first head coaching gig. Tried to do some different stuff at Temple, and some of it worked. The Temple Tough thing definitely stuck. Single digits to toughest players on the team. So that's a pretty cool deal. He's an honor roll guy, so he's got some natural intelligence about him, some character. He's well put together. 4-year starter. All the physical traits in the world, the size, the length. He's got strength. Even though, again, like the 28, bench press reps doesn't indicate very strong, powerful upper body strength, but he gets push. He's limited, but he's productive. He was the other guy that outside of Thomas Schaefer, they brought in 2 guys that were just big, massive beasts of dudes that played inside. Played 3 or played nose. This is definitely the better of the 2. The Thomas Schaefer kid, I don't think can move very well. Even though he's a local kid, he grew up in Austria, but he went to high school in Lake Forest, Illinois. Can't move to save his life, I don't think. But Daniel Archibong, I think, will have a chance. Interesting kid. I didn't get a chance to watch a ton of his tape, but I watched enough to really have a decent feel for him. He's got a chance.
Yeah, I think when I say a chance, I think he's got a chance at practice squad. I don't know. Again, depending on the defensive line depth. Again, he's not a guy that's going to be coming in and sacking a quarterback on a consistent basis. I don't think so, But I mean, just some of the things he provides on tape, the ability to gap, the ability to be a presence in the backfield, get upfield for guys 6'5", 295. Another guy maybe add another 5-10 pounds and make him 310, 305, and he's a 5 technique, a backup 5 technique down the future. So we'll see how it develops. But definitely a guy that I didn't expect much putting his tape on, but when I put him on it, there are things I liked about him.
100%.
All right, guys. Are you done with your undrafted free agent evaluations? Anyone else you want to bring up? Because I got a couple of questions in the.
I watched Gunnar Vogel, the kid from Northwestern. I mean, I like his size: 6'6", 306, 34 and a quarter inch arm length, 10 and a 1/8 hands, big hands. 2-year starter, right tackle. Initially I put on his tape and it looked good. I mean, he's got like I said, the size, the length, I like that. When he extends, he locks out his arms. He's got some solid grip strength to be able to torque and turn guys at the point of contact. When he gets into the defender's chest play, he controls it, drives them, and moves them off the line of scrimmage. But unfortunately, that's where it stopped for me. I mean, the guy's got no lateral agility in terms of being able to keep up with speed on the outside. Isaiah Loudermilk, I believe, was a 6th or 7th round pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers from Wisconsin. I mean, we just gave it to him the whole game against Wisconsin. So just one of those, guys got size, but unfortunately, I just don't know if he doesn't have the quickness. And even if I don't even see him projecting him as a guard in blocking in a booth, I just the lateral agility, it doesn't have it. And I wanted to like him. And like I said, I like the size, I like the length. I just didn't do anything for me in terms of his lateral agility and his athletic ability overall. He has a trouble reaching the second level. Even getting to the second level blocks, much less sustaining.
I was about to say, you saw him get to the second level.
Yeah, reaching it or even sustaining it. There's times he just kind of like gives up on a block and just says, "I can't get him." It was bad. So yeah,
Thomas Schaefer makes this guy look athletic though. So he's at least got That is one redeem. I mean, to his credit though, only allowed 1 sack.
True, but the quarterback was always running for his life.
100%, 100%. But you're not going to expect a whole lot out of Northwestern right tackle outside of a guy that's going to work his ass off and be intelligent. Hey, he's got a little shit to him. I mean, you saw him kind of throw a couple guys around, probably out of frustration, getting beat all game. But he's another one of these guys that'll probably be a practice squad dude.
Come on, give him. It's a local guy. Give him.
I'm just trying to be funny.
Success. All right, guys. Toa has a question. I know we're talking draft, but are there any veteran free agents that Neil and Danny feel that you'd like to see signed by the Chicago Bears? And that was one of the things Ryan Pace talked about at his press conference last Saturday, is that they definitely got their eyes on some street free agents and guys that they are anticipating will be cut. There, I took a quick look at the free agent list and a few players that are still out there. Richard Sherman, Russell Okung, Eric Fisher, Mitchell Schwartz, although he plays more on the right side, Melvin Ingram at the edge, Rick Wagner, some interesting names there, and there's a number of other guys.
The big thing I was looking at is offensive lineman, because I talked about you got to have a plan B here at left tackle. And you named some of the guys I was talking about. Eric Fisher, obviously he'd be ideal, but he's coming off that torn Achilles. When is he going to be available? Mitchell Schwartz is a nice, but he's also a right tackle only. So if you do swing Jenkins over to left tackle and he's your permanent starter, do you bring in a Schwartz to be a right tackle? I named Alejandro Villanueva just signed with the Ravens. He's a guy that I kind of would have liked to see him come in and just at least compete at left tackle. The other guy that kind of draws my attention, but I don't know if he's actually going to be able to play anymore, is Jason Peters from Philadelphia. I know he's 39 years old, but if you bring him in for 1 year, can he still play left tackle? I'm not sure. I really didn't watch him last year in terms of watching him with the Eagles. But I mean, you know what? A name that sticks out there is Charles Leno, man, at left tackle. I'm looking at left tackle here. Just sticks out to me. Rick Wagner's are more of a right tackle. These guys are just like nothing out there really, to really excite you. So I don't know.
That's hilarious. What do you think?
Chubb's over here with the burns tonight.
Yeah, really.
Chubb's over here roasting us tonight. I could appreciate that.
Super Mario, I think we're good.
I mean, we gotta give Leno more credit, man. This is just mean spirited at this point.
I don't get the hate for him. I know that he's looked awful on some plays, but you total it all up. He's 16th, 17th best left tackle. And you know how hard it is to get a top 10 left tackle. Now, I'm not saying Ryan Pace didn't screw up, but he was okay by ignoring that position. He was clearly wrong. But we got some pretty good dividends out of Charles Leno. There I go again on my soapbox.
The ROI was spectacular on Charles Leno.
Absolutely.
I keep on saying it. There's probably 15 teams in the league right now that would love to have Charles Leno.
And a lot of people are saying, well, how come he hasn't been signed yet? And I go, give it time. Give it time, because he's fielding offers. There's no doubt he's not sitting at home and waiting for the phone to ring. That phone has been ringing. Trust me on that.
He hasn't been cut for 9 minutes, and he's already in Washington. So somebody's going to pick this guy up.
Oh, without a doubt. Here comes Chubbs. Come on. This guy has been given us super pass by the media. All of the hell that the quarterbacks have gone through at the expense of Leno, and nobody even asked him about it after the games. Now, I'm not making excuses for the media not grilling him more. That probably is correct. And I know Chubbs was critical of the Barfly Tailgate show guys when Leno was a guest on their show, but he was there to accept an award. We weren't going to say, hey, he's
there to tell us philanthropy.
That's right. Here's an award for your community service. And by the way, why do you suck at left tackle? No, it doesn't work that way. But I don't know. It is what it is. The future tape will tell the story, because I got a feeling he's going to go play left tackle for somebody, and we're going to look at him and say, man, maybe he wasn't as bad as we thought he was. But all right, there was another question here that I had, and I lost it because we're fucking around here having fun. Somebody asked about the defensive line and how comfortable you guys are with the defensive line as a whole and the depth. Do you think that we still need help, given that some of the guys you talked about, like the Tonga and so forth, you're not particularly high on, at least Danny's not. What do you guys think overall about the defensive line?
Yeah, obviously everything starts up front with Hicks and Nichols and Goldman. If those three are good and healthy, again, you cannot assume a health, especially through a 17-game season now. So you're going to need some quality depth, right? And that's why for me, that the nose tackle is something that I'm really was intrigued by and looking at. So could you use better depth, and that's something where we can always have better depth at defensive linemen, right? Because that's why we're looking at these guys, the Camaros, the Archie Bungs, and bringing these guys in and maybe providing some depth for them here, at both all three positions. So if Tonga works out, great. I just don't see it, me personally, but hey, it'll be proven on the field on Sunday. So, and in terms of the, I know they lost Jenkins, they lost Roy Robertson Harrison. They haven't signed anybody else in terms of defensive line to my knowledge. Correct? I haven't checked the
Angelo Blackson.
Angelo Blackson, that's the guy. I knew they had somebody.
That's the only guy.
Yeah,
I haven't seen too much of Angelo Blackson. I can't tell if that's a good pickup or bad pickup. But I mean, at the end of the day, you're looking at the three guys that are starters: Nichols, Hicks, Goldman. Mario Edwards is your spot guy, your specialist.
That's right. Edwards is back as well. But he's not for the first 2 games of the season, though. Edwards is suspended.
Right. And again, who knows what's ultimately going to transpire out of this case that popped up out of South Carolina. But that's neither here nor there really at this point. It's just a matter of, like, the biggest issue to me is that you have 3 guys, and behind those 3 guys is just a lot of nothing.
Right.
That's a scary thing. I mean, we established depth now with the offensive line position, which was a scary thing at one point 2 years ago. Now we don't have any depth on the interior defensive line, and that's got to be fixed. Right. That had to be fixed yesterday.
Depending on Edwards, you're going to get, if you had Edwards from last year, I think he was very effective coming in and playing that 5 technique position, right. Providing that rush up the field. So assuming everything's okay with him, with the court case and all that stuff. So we'll see. The other thing is, we lost our defensive line coach, and that was a guy that I thought did a great job of bringing guys in, coaching them up, and having them productive. Yes, and he's now over with the Rams with Brandon Staley. So
right.
I think that's a really sneaky little big loss for the Bears there. So but depth is definitely a concern. Will they hit it via the veteran free agent market? We'll see. I can while Neil talks or all the talks, I can check the defensive tackle spot there and see who's available in terms of street free agents. But as of right now, the depth is pretty thin. Like you say, if God forbid one of those 3 starters goes down, you're in trouble, I think, up front.
If what Factor's saying is true, I mean, I'm gonna love him then.
Yeah,
right. Because I mean, I absolutely love Akeem Hicks. I look at Akeem Hicks the same way I look at like Joakim Noah and Anthony Rizzo. Like he is the heartbeat, the soul, the engine of his respective team. I mean, that's a guy that the day that we lose Anthony Rizzo is going to be a rough day for Chicagoans. The day that we traded away Joakim Noah, I'm pretty sure half the city cried. It's when that guy's not on the field, you can feel it, right? So, Angelo Blackson, if he can come in and provide that kind of spark, then that's a massive pickup then. But admittedly, I haven't seen any of his tapes, so I can't really speak.
A couple of guys like just kind of stuck on me looking at this defensive line. And again, this might be more of a maybe 5 technique, depending even if he's a fit on this team. But Sheldon Richardson is still out there, defensive lineman. Last year was with Cleveland. He's 30 years old. I think he was a cut because it was a cap casualty. So he's a guy a name out there, a veteran that if he's still available, prior to going to training camp, maybe bring him in on a 1-year contract, and that's another guy who gives you some quality depth behind your starters. But other than that, again, pickings are slim right now in free agency, especially for quality defensive linemen.
We can trade Nick Foles for one.
Yeah, maybe. Don't count on it, though. A couple of requests regarding Jarrell Casey. What do you guys think about the former Tennessee Titan?
Yeah, very, very productive, but injury prone a lot. I think last year he was with Denver, if I'm not mistaken, and with Vic Fangio, and I think they went ahead and cut him. So very productive, highly productive. He'd probably be a guy that fit in probably more likely at nose guard, if I remember correctly. So, if he's available, I'll take a flyer because, like I said, the depth right now is pretty slim, and unless one of these young guys comes in and makes a team off of in training camp, we'll have to take a look. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I would be more comfortable having a veteran presence there just for more depth.
Here's some Angelo Blackson tape. I've been asked to put some of it up so that you guys can react to him. He's definitely a disruptor. He's I think whoever it was that said he's kind of a mini Akeem Hicks.
Was it Factor? Did Factor put that up there?
Yeah, I think it was the Factor. You're right. But he's disruptive. There's no doubt about it. And he's the type of guy, don't count on him for 50, 60 snaps a game. You keep his snap level down to 20 to 30, he could be a great addition to this football team, like Brent Urban was,
Like all of a sudden, our third down pass rush becomes pretty lethal,
Yeah,
that's another name. It's a good name. Or I forgot about Brent Urban. He didn't have big time stats, but he was always productive. He's always there making tackles, making plays. So that's another name that's no longer with us. I think he went to the Cowboys, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right,
Brent Urban. So
all of these guys really benefit from the fact that Khalil Mack is on the field, and to be honest, Robert Quinn. And Robert Quinn didn't have the numbers, but those guys get attention. And so remember Nick Williams? He had a phenomenal year. It translated to him for a nice big fat contract with the Detroit Lions. And now every Detroit Lion fan, including Don Burr, who's missing today from in our chat room, wants to get rid of Nick Williams. They thought that he robbed them, and it was because they didn't factor in the Mac factor and how he helps these interior linemen.
Correct. Or the coaching by Rodgers. I mean, he could give him a technique or give him a tip here and there that helps him be productive. And now obviously you have that on tape. Offensive coordinators take a look at you, and then they kind of adjust to you the following season. If you don't have that coaching staff that tells you, hey, do this, do that to adjust, you could be not productive. It could be the situation he's in.
Caught a touchdown pass.
Is that Joel Casey, or is that who's
no? That's Blackson caught the touchdown pass.
Hell yeah!
Oh, okay.
Love fat guy touchdowns. Let's go. More of those.
Right there.
More of those.
Absolutely. I'll try to catch a touchdown pass for you. Since you like guys catching touchdown passes.
Oh, come on.
Oh, guys, this has been fantastic. I mean, we could go 2.5 hours. It could go another hour or two, but I know you guys have work in the morning, and I just want to say to everyone, a lot of great comments about how grateful our fans are for the coverage that you, Danny, and you, Neil, have provided, the evaluation, all of the hard work that goes into that and so forth. And so I just want to say to people, one way you can show your gratitude is by going over to Deep Dish Tees /barroom and buy a Draft on Tap hat or t-shirt or any of the merchandise there. The guys get a cut out of that. So head on over to deepdishtees.com. That's TEES.com. /barroom, and you'll see a bunch of barroom stuff there. It will help give the guys a little stipend for all the incredible work that they do. When we got on our StreamYard channel today, we talked about, I asked Danny, how's he doing? And he goes, man, I'm sad. And I go, why are you sad? He goes, this is our season finale. And there is a sort of a bittersweet feeling. The good thing is that we're going to be back. We're going to be back talking football with these guys and so forth. The good thing for them is they don't have to look at tape for a while.
What are you talking about? I'm already breaking down 2022. I told you.
I'll start
Take a break.
I can't. It's like I'm a crack fiend. I need tape.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. But I'm going to turn it over to you two guys to offer up your final thoughts. Neil, I'll start with you, brother.
Yeah, I'm not quite putting away the tape yet. Like my main job that I have is when I was a director of scouting at Mississippi State, and I was in recruiting at Northwestern, and as far back as we can go when technology has been involved in the recruiting process, I use this place called Catapult, which is basically just a deep database of names that helped us find the names that we had to find to watch the tape and find the guys that bring it to the program. And when my football career ended at Mississippi State, I was looking for something to get myself into to keep myself in the game, so to speak. And I found myself with Catapult. So on a daily basis, I'm not only watching tape for the show, but I'm also watching tape to help other guys like me that was in my position for as many years as I was in that position find players for their respective programs. And so I do, deep dive analysis into, kids in the state of Texas right now, doing high school evaluation on kids in the state of Texas. So, not putting away the tape yet, just keeping it going. That's pretty much what I do all day, every day. But in terms of the show, though, man, I'm just so blessed to find this opportunity to, hang out with Aldo, with Danny. Have had a lot of fun the past 8 months breaking down these guys, the witty banter, the craziness, the sleepless nights on Tuesday and Wednesday leading up to show day. But wouldn't have had it any other way. This has been a blessing of an opportunity, 100%. And it's 100% bittersweet too. And the thing about it is that this show couldn't be as strong and as awesome and chugging along like it is without great supporters, great followers, great watchers, great listeners. And so, as much as we have fun doing this, we also do this for you guys because, to see you guys, chime in with your opinions, with your criticisms, with your laughs, with your, busting my ass today about Tonga, both Danny and the people in the chat. I appreciate all of it. Because it's a lot of fun. You guys make this stuff even more fun than it already is for us. So I appreciate all of you guys. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for chiming in. We'll be back probably in September, right? So, hit us up on, or at least hit me up on social media in between. I'm always here to, answer questions, to, give my thoughts, this, that, and the other thing. Go Cubs, go indeed. Suck it, Danny. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, bud.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Like I said, Aldo said earlier, I was kind of bittersweet. Like, it's the draft is over. Neil and I accomplished what we wanted to do. We wanted the Bears to trade up and get one of these 5 quarterbacks. They did it. We were excited. But yeah, I mean, it's been awesome. It's been a great ride, and especially with Neil joining the show this year. Has been an awesome partner. And obviously, Aldo, running the ship has been great as well. And I echo the same sentiments that Neil just said. The listeners, you guys have been, participating in these chats, and these questions have been awesome. We enjoy answering you guys' questions because, it's like, this is what we want. We have the information, and if you guys have questions, just, shoot them to us, and we'll go and give you all the information you guys need. But like I said, it's been fun. I can't wait to do it again. I'm back into the 2022 tape. I'm going to probably take a week off to kind of decompress a little bit, and then I'm going to start hitting the 2022 tape. So if you guys are seeing anybody that you want to, we give you some initial thoughts on, just hit me up on Twitter. I'm at @dshimon56. I've already got a couple calls from the NFL community asking me for some scouting reports on a couple of players. So I'm going to hit that as well. So yeah, even though the show won't be here, I will still be in the tape. So like I said, it's my crack cocaine. I love it, and I can't get enough of it. So yeah, I mean, it's been it's been great, and hopefully next year when we start up again, whether it's August, September, or October, I'm not sure yet. We'll announce it. I'm sure Aldo will announce it, but we would love to have you guys back and rock and roll again for another season.
You got that 2022 mock draft up yet, Danny? Or are you one of those?
No, I don't believe in mock drafts, man. I don't believe in
Thank you.
I already got some high quality first round players. This kid Thibodeau from Oregon, hell of an edge player. Stingley Jr., the cornerback from LSU, is going to be hell of a player. There's some offensive linemen that some tackles or we take a look at as well. So the quarterback group, man, it's a little washy right now. So I'm just glad the Bears went up and got Justin Fields.
The funny thing to me is that when you have a guy that you would not have given a sniff at being a first round pick based off this year's tape, all of a sudden is a first round pick on 2022 mock drafts. Well, that's why all this stuff's worthless.
Joe Burrow, Mac Jones, all these guys, they work. Zach Wilson wasn't a first round pick last year. If you looked at his tape, so all these guys, there's always going to be a guy that's going to come up. So a couple of guys that I keep an eye on is this kid from Nevada, Strong, is a quarterback. He's a guy that has a chance to move on up, and I'm a big Desmond Ridder believer. So the kid from Cincinnati, we'll see how he does this year.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was talking about though. Like I've seen a couple already where they have Desmond Ridder going in the top 15 10. Or top 20 or something.
Did you see what McShay had? He had Slovis going number 1 overall.
He had Slovis going number 1.
I almost fell out of my chair.
Oh my God, that's what I'm talking about. You would not have given that guy a first round pick based off this year's tape. All of a sudden he's your top draft pick. It's ridiculous. Get out of here with that.
We got one of the guys. Man, I wish there was a way I could highlight comments so that I can easily find them. But one of the guys in the chat room said, is there any way you guys can break down tape of the Bears during the season? And we've actually been talking about that. So there is a possibility that we can do that. And we know that these are two of the best in the business at breaking down tape. So during the Bears season, we just might do that. John Buffone now is in charge of football operations here at the Barroom Network, so he'll be talking to Neil and Danny and see how much he can squeeze out of these guys. And again, one great way that you can help these guys make it even more worthwhile for them is if you head over to Deep Dish Tees /Barroom and purchase a T-shirt and wear it proudly. Take a picture of it and we'll put it in a video or something like that. Guys, for me, I just want to say this has been such a thrill. One of the most favorite, my most favorite shows that I've done in the 6 or 7 years that I've had the Barroom now. This has been such a blast. The premise that we had where you guys evaluated things and then I screwed it up on draft day by trading 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance.
You traded more for Trey Lance than the 49ers did.
That's right. Well, you know, I like to pretend I'm a general manager, but I'm definitely not. In fact, I'm still trying to find what I'm good at. But nonetheless, I'm good at having a blast, and that certainly happened because of your great work and the rapport that you guys had and the camaraderie that we established. And so this has been fun, and we're definitely going to do it again, and we're going to do it again soon. But I'm glad you guys are going to take some time off and replenish, except for Danny. Danny's got to do his crack.
Do it.
And then I promised you two guys that we were going to party, and we are going to party. We just have to find a date. And we're going to post some video up on our Barroom Network Twitter channel of Neil, Danny, and some other friends just having a good time and celebrating this season of Draft on Tap. It's over. It's over, guys. Can't wait for the next one. But, man, we're going to celebrate the success we had with this show. And I can't wait to meet up with Neil for the first time face-to-face, and then Danny one more time. All right, fellas, final goodbyes. Go for it.
And hey, I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you, I appreciate the hell out of both you guys. If I didn't mention it enough in my my final thoughts, appreciate the hell out of both you guys. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. It's been a hell of a year. Had a lot of fun. Can't wait to see you guys in a couple weeks. Let's party up, celebrate.
Same here, brother. Can't wait to start doing this all over again.
Hell yeah.
Thanks everyone for watching and all your support. Bye-bye.
Thank you.